All right. Thank y'all for coming. I call this meeting of the Mount Vernon Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, I need a motion to certify the agenda. Motion made by Robert, seconded by Scott, all four. 7-0. At this time, I'll lead us in a prayer. Pray with me, please. God, thank you for bringing us here tonight, and we pray, Lord, that you give us wisdom and help us to make the best decision for your district, for your students here, and our staff, and our parents, and all those that are involved in it. God, just be with us. Be with those, Lord, that are in tough times right now, those, Lord, that have been in these tornado tragedies and different things. God, just be with these people that are just less fortunate. And thank you, Lord, for watching over us and the many blessings that we have, Lord, from our success and different things that we do and all of our students. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Let's do our pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
All right, Dr. McCullough, got some special recognitions.
Yes, sir, I do. Thank everyone for being here. We do, for those who don't know, this is also a joint meeting tonight with our facilities committee. So we have several of those here tonight, and thank you for being a part of it. So our first, we're going to do Auxiliary Staff Member of the Month for the month of December, and that is Miss Zella Arraza. So this is what is said about Mrs. Zelma. Said she works so hard each day working with our ESL kids in their reading. She is concerned about each and every one of them making progress. She has already come to my classroom several times to talk to me about the students that we share. She wants to know how they are doing for me, what I'm noticing, what I think they need help with, so that she can provide that extra support for them in her classroom. She is such a blessing to have her in our purple pod. And I will say that her principal and assistant principal made sure that she was recognized and almost threatened me. I won't say almost. So, Miss Zella Arraza. Speech? You want to say anything?
No, just thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for what you
It's
do.
an honor to be at the elementary, so I'm liking it.
Very good. We're glad you're there. Oh.
It's a rug. It's a Glover rug.
All right. Next, we will do Elementary Teacher of the Month for the month of December, Miss Carol Walters. It says Ms. Walters serves as kindergarten team leader on our campus. She helps support her team through her content knowledge and lesson planning. In addition, she always brings new ideas and is willing to support colleagues in any capacity. In her classroom, you will find highly engaged students held to a higher expectation. Ms. Walters spends countless extra hours going above and beyond for her students and coworkers. We are blessed to have her as part of the Mount Vernon Elementary School family. Ms. Carol Walters.
Thank you.
No
speech.
No speech. Okay. Congratulations. Next is the Middle School Teacher of the Month. It is the multi-talented Coach Stephen Ladd. Says Stephen Ladd was nominated as the Middle School Teacher of the Month for his relentless dedication to Mount Vernon students. He is reliable, conscientious, caring, and above all loyal to the Mount Vernon community and schools. Coach Ladd is always willing to step into any necessary role with a positive attitude and a friendly disposition. He is well liked by his peers and the entire student body. He He builds great relationships with his students and has fun teaching and coaching, and all those students know he is kind and generous demeanor. They know he means business and has high expectations for their academics and future. Mount Vernon Middle School is very fortunate to have Coach Slatter on our campus and appreciate his dedication to the district. Very good. Speech?
Go Tigers.
Right on in the girls' basketball.
No rest for the weary, correct? All right. Now I'd like to introduce our high school teacher of the month for the month of December, Coach Greg Gamblin. Mr. Gamblin is an integral part of the team at Mount Vernon High School. In the classroom, he teaches government economics, dual credit government economics, along with an elective Old New Testament course. This year, he has also done an excellent job of teaching our U.S. history tutorials in preparation for the EOC retesting. Mr. Gamblin has been a great positive voice for our campus this school year and has worked tirelessly to implement all curriculum initiatives into his classroom. He has also taken on the role of Social Studies Department Head for the 2022 school year. Mr. Gamblin can be counted on to fulfill all his professional responsibilities consistently and effectively. As well as being an outstanding teacher, Mr. Gamblin makes a real effort to form positive relationships with students. You can always find him standing out in the hall between classes, greeting students, and giving them encouragement. He takes great interest in his students and their success, both academic and otherwise. Students know that he is one of their #1 supporters in any and all activities that they are participating in. In addition to his duties as a teacher, Mr. Gamblin works tirelessly for our student athletes by serving as both the girls and boys powerlifting coach. He has done a tremendous job of building that program over the last few years, and the program continues to have incredible success. Mr. Gamblin is a true asset to our campus in multiple ways, and he is more than worthy to be recognized as Teacher of the Month for Mount Vernon High School.
I started here in 1998, and it was a pleasure to be able to get back here and retire. Is what my goal is.
Mr. Gamblin, hang out just a second. Watch the chords, but we're gonna do a group picture.
Okay.
So, Ms. Walters, lay it off.
Everybody
Y'all come
back?
up and let's do a picture right quick. Please.
We'll see if that works. Step back just a little bit.
Just watch. Sorry, I was gonna try to hold.
I probably need to be on the very end.
Congratulations. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks, sir. Thanks.
Max, we got it.
Give the weapon away. You're gonna hurt someone. I'm like, how sharp it is now.
Anyone here to speak in open forum? Okay, item 4, consider approval of consent agenda. Any questions on that? The December budget amendment, any questions? Okay, no questions on that, and need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion made by Brooks. Second by Josh, all for it. That is 7-0. And if you have an agenda, we're gonna move some things around a little bit, cause our auditor, Mr. Lake, has about 9 schools to go to tonight in 2 hours.
We're delivering 7 tonight. I'll have to do 3 of them.
Well, we're gonna move, item 6A, consider and approve the independent audit report as presented by Rutherford and Taylor and Company. We'll do that right now, and thank you for being brief, because we've got a lot of stuff tonight. So, ready?
Well, everything looks good.
Yeah.
Well, let me thank y'all for the opportunity to be here, and I'm glad that you put me on front. That's wonderful. Let me just cover about 10 items in here. Is that enough for you?
Yes, sir, you do what you
Okay.
need to do, I'm messing.
Beginning on page 5 is the independent auditor's report. You know, really, the auditor's reports in here are really the only thing that I do to put this report together, so to speak, in the perfect sense of the world, but, because the financial statements are your financial statements. So, But anyway, page 5, the independent auditor's report. It's what we call an unmodified opinion. It's the best opinion that you can receive. Basically what it says is that we didn't find anything to dispute the fact that the financial information presented presents a fair picture of the district's finances as of and for the year ended August 31st. So again, the best you can receive. And then we follow that up with 2 more reports, both on internal control and compliance. Happy to say there's no compliance violations. We didn't identify anything that we considered to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal control. So again, the best report you can receive. And then from there, the report's basically the same thing you get every year. It's got a few changes with numbers and whatnot. I'll just kind of point out a couple of things. On page 17, these are the government-wide financial statements. Table A1 is the statement of net position, shows your assets, your liabilities, everything. You can kind of see the comparisons there. There's very little change in your overall total assets. Decrease there in that deferred outflow of resources. Your liabilities went down 33 million last year versus 30 million this year. And so what that amounts to is our net position, the thing at the bottom there, basically if you took all your assets and converted them cash and used that cash to pay off all your liabilities, this is what you'd have left over. What you can see there, 8.4 million last year, up to 10.2 million this year. And then at the bottom of the page there, and I've just been telling all boards this, I told everybody last year with the pandemic and unemployment and everything that I was really worried about tax collections and whether or not everybody would be able to achieve the 100% that we all want. Well, y'all are right there, 99.92% on your base levy, and then over 102%, or at 101% when you throw in your penalty and interest. So, got a little egg on my face over that comment. I guess I shouldn't have said it. But anyway, table A2 is the income statement. Changes in net position. You can see here we generated roughly the same amount of revenue as we did last year, 21.4 last year, 21.1 this year. Slight decrease. Our expenses went down as well from 20.3 down to 19.3. So our increase or decrease in net position last year 1.1 million, this year is 1.7 million. And then the next page takes that same information, just puts it into a pie chart so you can kind of see that property taxes are 64% of your total revenues. If you go back several years and you look at that property tax number continues to increase just slightly from year to year. It's what's happening across the state. The state's taking less and less of its share to provide for the education of students, and the local taxpayers are having to pick up the difference. And then at the bottom of the page, there you got 55% of your total expenses are in the area of instruction. That's basically what happens in the classroom. So we're in the education business, so that's exactly where we would hope to see most of the money being spent. Okay, from there, let's go back to page 26. These are the financial statements themselves. The first 2 financial statements are the same thing that we just talked about in tables A1 and 2. Just a little bit more detail. You can see what your accounts payable is versus just current liabilities and whatnot. But Exhibit C1 on page 26, these are the fund financial statements. This is the way you see your financial information on a month-to-month basis. You can see here that our general fund, where the majority of everything happens, $7.6 million in cash and investments as of the end of the year, and $9 million across all funds there. You go down the page, you'll see that accrued wages is our largest liability. Teachers start teaching mid-August. Our end of our fiscal year is there, and they don't actually get paid until September. So that's the largest liability that we have on this type of a presentation. Then we see our fund balances there. The general fund, $6.9 million fund balance. The debt service fund at $1.5 million, and then across all funds, $8.9 million. Then Exhibit C3, 2 more pages over. This is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance. You can see here we generated just slightly under $16 million in revenue for the general fund and $21 million for all funds. $14.3 million in expenditures for the general fund and $19 million across all funds. So line 1200, there's our net increase or decrease for the year. The general fund up at $1.6 million. The debt service fund $247,000. Across all funds $1,080,000. I know I'm going through it pretty quick, so if you need me to stop, just let me know. Then from there we get into the notes to the financial statements. I'll just point over page 43. A lot of time the notes just have a lot of additional information and whatnot, but how much do we owe? This is the schedule that shows your long-term obligations. You can see here, we started the year off at $22.5 million. We paid that down $1.8 million, so $20,700,000 is what we owe as of the end of the year. And you can see what your requirements are going to be over the next few years listed there as well. And one more note back here. You know, we get our funding. I mean, most of y'all's funding comes from your local taxpayers, but the state does kick in some. Right at the bottom of page 54 is kind of a chart there. It kind of shows you the in effect the four major areas where the state provides funding. The available fund, foundation funding, IFA and EDA, both of those two relate to debt retirement. But the foundation is by far the largest one. You can see there that the district generated a little over $700,000 in available funding and just slightly under $3 million in foundation funding for the year. Three more schedules. Exhibit G1 on page 57. Here's the comparison with the budget for the year. No categories were over expended. If we look at line 6030, total expenditures, about 3/4 of the way down the page, you can see there that we were some $1.1 million under budget for the year. Page 64 is the schedule of delinquent taxes receivable. Talked about delinquent taxes. We started the year off at just slightly under $700,000. We levied $13.5 million in taxes. We basically collected that and some because we ended the year at $754,000. Even though we had a great tax collection year, always continue to work with your delinquent tax attorney, make sure we get those funds collected to further the education of the students here in the district. Then one last schedule on page 69 and 70. Here's your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. How much money did the district benefit from federal programs this year? You can see a little over $2.1 million in actual federal funding came to the district. Now I know I've gone through it really quick. Has anybody got any questions or something that I can answer? Okay, well, as always, I want to, of course, thank Dr. McCullough and Pam and the rest of the staff. We appreciate their help in getting these numbers together. It's really a pleasure to come here and work. We don't have to make a lot of adjustments here, which is a great sign. Y'all just need to keep her, don't let her retire. But with that said, I'll get out of your way, but as always, I'll just leave you with the fact that if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. I'll be more than happy to come back and explain anything further.
We appreciate you.
All right, thank y'all very much.
All right, so we're gonna move back up to item 5.
Don't need a vote first.
Oh, sorry about that. It is an action item. So, item A, need a motion to approve the independent audit report as presented by Rutherford and Taylor and Company. Motion's made by Linda, seconded by Robert. All for that? 7-0, thanks. Now we'll move back up to our discussion item, construction delivery at-risk method presentation. So, we have two routes we can take when we go into this, process. It's construction manager agent and construction manager at risk, and that's what we're gonna, last meeting, we had a presentation on CMA, and tonight we're gonna get a presentation on CMAR. Is it HWA, is that right? Gonna present to us tonight, so thank y'all for coming.
Give you guys a handout. Thank you guys for letting us come out tonight. I have a couple extras. Is there anyone else that needs one? Anybody else does need one? There are a couple extras. But I'm Corey Wood. I'm Senior Business Development Manager with Harrison Walker and Harper, and Randall Stanley, our VP of Pre-Construction. We'll kind of get here. And so, again, thank you guys for allowing us to come out and visit with you tonight. I know you went through a presentation already, so hopefully we can be informative with you guys, answer any questions that you have. We want it to be an open discussion. So, as we get going, we'll talk through a lot of things. We're going to touch on a lot of points. Any point you got a question, just stop us and ask. We want to make sure very interactive back and forth, because there's a lot of information, a lot of differences in these two delivery methods. And so if there are questions, please go ahead and stop us. We'll be glad to answer them as we go. A little history about us. We are Harrison Walker and Harper, HWH, out of Paris, Texas. Been around since 1887, so family-owned business. The oldest family-owned business in the state of Texas. So I haven't been around that long, almost, but Randall's been with the company 11 years now, and I've been there. This is my 11th year also, so both of us been with the company for a while. Both of us live there in Paris. A little bit of information, just our firm profile. We love working in East Texas. We do a lot of school work in East Texas, do a lot of different things. We also do federal work. We do a lot of self-perform work. We do hospitals, do a lot of wind and solar. We're a very diverse company, but school work is one of our major sources of work that we do. Really like working in Region 8. Really involved in Region 8. To see Mr. McCullough a lot at events. This is where we want to be. We want to be in Mount Vernon. We want to be in Paris. We want to be in Pleasant Grove. We want to work with people who are like us, and that's why we're here tonight, to be able to present to you guys, because see a lot of you guys at competitions. My kid goes to Prairie Land, so we're not in your district now, but have been, so a lot of back and forth there. Around East Texas, a lot of events, so I don't like to come to a school like Mount Vernon and see another competitor working in a district that's this close to me, so would like the opportunity to be here. Couple things about us that kind of stands out. Like I said, being a 5th generation family-owned business, we have done work in multiple schools, over $690 million in projects in K through 12. One thing that we bring to the table that a lot of our competitors do not is our self-perform capabilities. So we do have Harrison Walker and Harper GC. This is general construction, which would be the construction manager at risk on this project. We also have HWH Industrial, which is our industrial side of our company. Got a list of some of the things that we do as an industrial company. We self-perform, and when I mean self-perform, we actually have the craft people in our company, our own craft. We run over 120 craft laborers in our company. We have civil utilities, so we do earthwork and utility in-house. And as we discuss it in this project, each project's different for us. Being in East Texas, we know you're going to have subcontractors in Mount Vernon area that you'll want to use, but we bring these crafts also, and we'll competitively bid that project. When that project goes to bid, Mr. McCullough or any of you guys are welcome to come to our office when we open bids, so you see what we're doing. It's an open forum when we do that. We'll bring bids in. We'll go through each one of them. You'll see what people's bids are. And we'll bid that competitively as a self-perform. We like to do self-perform work. It gives us the control of the project. Time frame is a big deal right now. If you're familiar with any construction projects, there are a lot of hurdles we're going to go through on a project. There's a lot of things that it takes time to get. It's not readily available like it was in the past. So we like, and labor is one of those things. Labor is hard to come by. I mean, you see that in school districts and wherever you work, labor is hard to come by. So we like to have that control to where we have these trades and we can supplement what's going on in the project if we're not the main contractor on it. Self-perform concrete, structural steel. We have a fabrication shop in Paris, about a 40,000 square foot shop that we can self-perform structural steel. Mechanical HVAC, you know, we'll bid on the HVAC in the project, probably plumbing too. So we are licensed in HVAC and plumbing in the state of Texas along with the structural steel. And those are two things. We also have a company called Rogers & Wade that's located in Paris. It's a sister company to ours. And they do a lot of store fixtures and cabinetry. So all of our school projects we bid as Rogers & Wade also. Sometimes we get to do them, sometimes we don't, but we do have the control to self-perform and do the millwork on each of these projects.
One of the things that helps us before we ever get to construction is during our pre-construction phase, you know, we're working with your architect from the very beginning, because right now this is the tightest sub and labor market. Prices are escalating like we've never seen them in our industry. But while we're going through these really early packages, we can use these people as a resource. If we have an issue with the HVAC, we're trying to figure out maybe a more economical way to do it. We can pull in HVAC people and, you know, that have been doing this work and say, hey, what would you suggest? What have you seen? Is there something, you know, here's what we're talking about doing, here's our price. Is there something that we could do differently to get the same result and be more economical? And that is something that actually helps a great deal, because right now with all of our projects, not just K through 12 projects, I mean, the prices are escalating so fast that the biggest problem is keeping it in budget throughout design. So that when you know, every school wants the same thing. They want the best quality, they want to spend every dollar they have, and they want to get every bit of value out of each of those dollars. And that starts a whole lot sooner than when we show up to build. It starts during design, it goes all the way through the process, so that when you get to the, you know, to the end budget, you know, you're getting everything you can for every dollar you have to spend. And that is a resource that we can pull, that we have in-house. The steel he's talking about, from a time standpoint, we are looking at, you know, steel deliveries going from 33 to 36 to 40 weeks from order. We had a gentleman from Volcraft Steel in our office the other day, and they're designing it's a private project. They went to Volcraft and said, what type of bar joists and deck can we get? How fast can we get them for if we're going to build this 80,000 square foot building? Their engineers gave them what they wanted. They ordered that product. They don't have schematic design yet. They took that product to their designer and said, here it is. You need to design this into your project so that we can have it, because of some time frames they're trying to meet. So, I mean, time is a big problem right now in everything.
And just a little bit more about us and what we, as far as us working with Mount Vernon ISD, what expectations you can have, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the construction manager risk. You know, we're gonna come in and we're gonna be a part of your community. You know, we wanna be a part of your athletics, all of your athletics, all of your CTE. We wanna be part of your educational foundations. You know, HWH is gonna commit 100% to you, just like you're committing to us when we come in. You're going to have fundraisers. You're going to have things that come up. You know, we expect you to look to us to be a part of that. The CTE process of it, your seniors, your juniors, your sophomores, your freshmen, your high school kids, it's very important to us. We put extra time and effort into coming in and working with those kids throughout this construction project. We've got to have buy-in from you. We've got to have buy-in from your students, and we've got to have buy-in from your community. You know, I will personally come out and go through each step of the construction project working with your CTE or ag or whoever's over that program, me and Mr. McCullough would discuss that. I want to make sure that they understand that not just this is what we're doing, but this is actually what these people do in this position in our company. This is what this is what they make for, as a salary, and this is what their livelihood is based on. Because we need those people in our industry. We have people from the Mount Vernon area that work for us. That's not too far to drive to Paris. We work all over East Texas. Some of your kids are going to go to college, some of them are not. We have multiple kids on our staff right now, 20, 21, 22 years old, making $75,000, $80,000 a year driving equipment and welding in our self-perform trades. So we want to be a part of your community, and we want to make sure that through this whole process as far as construction that everybody is involved and everybody's bought in and understands what we have going on. So we'll kind of scroll over to the back here just a little bit and go through a couple of these pages real quick. Just kind of let you know some of the projects we're working on right now. We're working on a project with Prairie Land right now on their May of this year bond program. It's about $8 million at 2 different campuses. They're doing additions at the junior high and at their Blossom Elementary campus. You can see those 2 projects there, kind of what we're looking at. Construction actually started this week, breaking ground. One thing I do want to mention also on theirs, and we'll mention it in your, as far as what we would do with you guys also, you see this project on the bottom of the page. That project was a fast-track project that needed to be done right away. We pulled that project out of our CMAR project, run that project through TIPS. 2 advantages to using TIPS, and I'm sure y'all are familiar with TIPS, working in Region 8. The price, we were able to take off the general conditions and construction fee, and they didn't have to pay that, and the time frame. So we saved them, roughly 10% on the project by self-performing and not having to have a construction manager out there, because we have those capabilities and understanding on how to work that project. So, there's things in your bond program that we noticed that you could do some of the same things with, where you could use TIPS as a procurement method, and you're not paying a construction manager to manage those projects for you. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Melissa Championship Center is a project we just finished up. Very proud of this project. That's a 120-yard football field under roof. It's about a $20 million indoor practice facility. One of the most state-of-the-art facilities I've seen and been a part of. But they also had a turf field on the outside with a track around it. Worked with Symmetry Turf on that project. 2 different kinds of field on it, so it's a project that you'd really want to have you guys go take a look at and see the field and the quality of it and understand all the different aspects of the different kind of turf. But that we just finished up that project, and we were actually a CM agent on that project. Prairie Land were a CMAR, and on Melissa we were a CM agent. We finished up some projects at Paris, Cooper here recently, Clarksville, we worked with them. Just a couple of, some others that we worked in here. I did put a page in here. I know one big part of your project is the kitchen cafeteria area. So we've highlighted some kitchens and cafeterias that we built in recent years also. So we'll get to the good stuff. Let's talk about CMR and the construction manager at risk delivery method. You want to kind of lead some?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we do CM agent as well as CM at risk. Both methods have their positive, both methods have their negatives, but the main difference is just it's in the title. We're either your agent, where you taking risk and responsibility, or we're at risk where we're taking risk and responsibility. We're not going to do anything different in how we perform our work and how we try to help the school, help your designer, get you everything we can for the project. The big difference is we will give you a guaranteed maximum price. And at the end of your project, unless you decide to make material changes, post GMP, that's the number that you're going to pay to build your project. Pricing it, you should get the exact same thing from your CMA contractor as you do from a CMAR. You should ask for a pre-construction fee, because that's a very important component. If someone says, well, we just give that away, that's probably what, the amount of help you're going to get during the pre-construction of the project. You should ask for a general condition fee from either. We want to know what it's going to cost to do that project, our people on the job trailers, things that's going to take for us to do the job.
That includes our project managers, our superintendents, there's different ways they do general conditions. We see general conditions fluctuate probably between $32,000 to $36,000 a month as far as what general condition charges are. Whether you put your trailer cost in your general conditions or you put it as a cost of work, your temporary fencing, your utilities for trailers and things like that. But the meat of your general conditions is your on-site labor, your site superintendent. He's here all the time. That's going to be your go-to guy. That's the guy you're going to talk to all the time. And then your project manager, who's going to be doing all the legwork on the backside. And then the construction manager at risk, he takes care of everything for you, all your financials, all your submittals, all of those types of things. That's what that project manager is going to take care of.
And the last number you should get is the construction fee. If your project is X dollars and our fee is X%, you know how much we're going to make on that job. And that way, it's your responsibility to know it's going to cost me this when I get finished at that job. That's what it's going to cost me to build my project. And then the cost of work is the same either way. The only difference is we're holding contracts versus the school holding contracts.
So in a CMAR method, when we bid a project out, you're going to go through the same thing with pre-con. We're going to work hard with WRA to understand budget. We're going to put work in on the front end. We'll probably go through multiple budget cycles, so we make sure these costs are coming in where they need to be. Like we keep saying, that's very important in this day and time, because you're going to set a budget, and if somebody's telling you that the budget is, and you're going to make sure that budget's going to meet right now, it can't be 100% right now, because there's too many things that are changing. We're seeing things that are delayed, costs escalating really quick. So there's things there that you can't be 100% that those budgets are right on one round of pricing. You have to price multiple rounds as you go through the project. We'll go through that, and then when we'll get to the final bid, they'll have 100% construction drawings. We'll put that out on the street, and we'll ask for sub bids. When we get those sub bids, like I said, you'll see that. We'll put in, at that point, we will create your guaranteed maximum price. That's what your price will be. And at that point, when we sign off on that price, we take all the risk at that point. So, like you said, if anything changes from that point, you're gonna see that. All of our bonds, everything's included. Anything that has to do with the project, we're in control of it. There'll be one point of contact. The other biggest difference in a CMA and a CMAR delivery method is who carries the contracts. In a CM at risk, when I take those bids from a subcontractor, that bid will be written HWH to the subcontractor. In a CM agent method, when you hire a subcontractor, it is written Mount Vernon ISD to that subcontractor. In a ground up construction, it's not as much risk because you got a greenfield site. It's easy to go, not easy, but it's simpler to go out in an open pasture and build something ground up. There's not as many variables, right? Guys, y'all got a pretty complex project here. There's a lot of things that you're looking at. All the additions and all the different spaces that you're in. Are there things that could pop up? Very certainly there can.
In a renovation project, there's inherently more risk than in a ground up project. That's just the fact of construction.
That's where that's where that risk plays in. When we give you that price, we're standing by that price. And unless it's something that you're changing, then you can see changes from that point. But in a construction manager at risk, we carry that risk. And like I said, each of those contracts. The other big piece of that is the management process of that on a monthly basis. When you carry that contract, you write those checks every month. So instead of you writing one check to the construction manager at risk each month, and we go back and we pay all the subs, on an agent method, you're going to write checks to each and every sub. Now, the way we manage it, we would go through each of those pay apps with you. Same thing on the construction manager at risk. You're going to know where we're at in phases on those pay apps. You're going to see that. But, you know, it does take a lot more time, and it, you know, at Melissa, when they did construction manager agent, they had a guy that's been in construction for a while. If I was working for you guys, I would feel better for you doing a construction manager agent, because you have a construction person on staff that understands all these different levels of what's going on. If you know, it takes a lot. Your business office is going to be busy writing a lot of checks, reviewing payouts, reviewing all these things. It takes a lot of time to do that. With the construction manager rest, you don't have to go through that. Those are the two main items that are different as far as the on-site management. It's not we don't manage them any different. We have the same superintendent, the same project managers. We're just more open with how we do that. You see everything in our CM agent and our CMAR. We're open with you, and you see the financials of both projects. But those are the two biggest items that we see different with those. And like I said, everything's handled through one contractor, and all of you don't have to worry about the payments, the payouts. Where you're at as far as phasing and how much the progress payments are going to be made and how those things are affected. You know, also talking about, you know, we have a page in here about our estimating. I talked about the guaranteed maximum price, where we would be with that, with our estimating, how that would get to that point. We monitor that project. Our project managers will be involved in it throughout the process. We'll do a handoff to those guys so they know what they're working with when they get to that point. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, during the estimating process, you know, it's complete open book. You know, we would ask, you know, you to have a representative when the day we're taking bids. You'll see them all. Even in a CMAR, if our industrial group is bidding, their bid will be there early. You will see everything. And then prior to making recommendations of who we wanted to use, we'll vet each one of those subcontractors, because it's not always the lowest contractor that gets the best value. You know, no subcontractor wants to turn down work. So he bids it, he thinks he can do it. We'll talk to him about his current workload, you know, his future workload. You know, everybody starts a job wanting to do a good job. Sometimes, especially in today's market, they just get overloaded. They have a hard time, you know, keeping up. And that's another advantage to our self-performance. It's never best to fire a subcontractor in the middle of a project. You know, it happens, but it's never the best solution. Sometimes, if we can supplement a subcontractor, which under a CMAR, that's our responsibility, not the schools, because we have the contractual agreement with the subcontractor, and we did this on a recent project. Got them over a hump, past the point where they now had enough, you were able to finish the job, had enough personnel laborers to put on the job. Once we got them caught up, you know, they did excellent. And they've worked for us for years and will continue to. It's just another advantage of having that in-house. But, I mean, the difference between CMA and, as he said, we do CM agent, in a perfect world where everything goes A to Z just like you want it to, I would love to do CM agent. The more inherent risk in a project, the more CMAR becomes, you know, more attractive.
I'll give you an example. At Melissa, we were with our subcontractor. Our electrical contractor was not performing well. Quality of work was fine, but man, they were killing our schedule. We're pushing. We get to the point, it's time to make that hard decision. You know, we're going to terminate and bring somebody else in, or we're going to keep pushing forward to them. So we go back to the school, and you know, we've done notices. You know, we go through steps with these guys. We don't just come in and say we're going to fire you. You know, we're given notices. You got 10 days to staff up. You got 5 days till this happens. You know, we're going through this process. So we go back to school. Okay, we've done all we can do as an agent. It's time for you to fire them and move on to another one. Most school districts don't want to be an attorney. Most school districts don't want to be put in that place to where you have to terminate a contractor. And that's kind of where CM agent falls back to, because ultimately the contract comes back to you. The contract's got your name on it. In a CMAR, we fire them, or we supplement them, and we handle all that. You don't have that headache. Yeah, you stay on us, to push us to make sure we're meeting our schedules. And our project manager's gonna do that. You're gonna have weekly meetings with them. We're gonna come to the board meeting on a monthly basis, and we're gonna give you updates. You know, you're gonna know what's going on with the project. Guys, sometimes things go on a project. With Melissa, we pushed those guys hard enough, they staffed up, they got the project done. Now, probably won't be working on another project with the district, but they did, the project turned out well. But you don't, it gets a lot more personal on a CM agent method when you have to do something like that. And that's not, for us, we know how to, we're used to that, and that's just part of construction. But that's one big thing that you really need to consider. One other page we put in was our warranty. You know, we're gonna, kind of how we approach that. You know, we're gonna be around. I'll come back in after 6 months. My phone's I'm always available. We'll go over the different components of your project. Some things have 1-year warranty, some things have 5, some have 10. Roofs can be out even longer. I've been on roofs, you know, just 2 years ago that we put up in 2007. So our company stands behind stuff. It's not always the best way to do it, but we're not going to leave you hanging on anything that goes. Like I said, I've got kids. I'm still going to be here. I don't want you coming to me like, why aren't you taking care of this? We're a big part of the community too. And, you know, the same thing with that. You know, we're at risk. We're going to be calling we have the contract with the subs. We're going to be pushing those guys and making sure they come out with any warranties or punch list items that they need to take care of. That will all be taken care of before we leave.
Our warranty system is web-based. You have a problem, superintendent can go to the website, put in the problem. When he clicks on it, it goes to our warranty manager. It also goes to the superintendent who was on the project, the project manager who was on the project, the business development guy who was on the project, and our VP of construction. So, you know, if somebody's out, you've got 5 shots that as soon as that ends, within a few minutes, somebody's gonna know, hey, we got a warranty problem. Who do I need to call? Where do I need to go?
And just kind of close out and let y'all ask any questions you have. I mean, we would want to jump on board with WRA right now. I know y'all have done some initial design. We want to get our heads wrapped around it, get our pre-con guys, our chief estimator, project manager, everybody involved now. I mean, we want to start checking numbers, going back and forth, getting ideas, seeing what you're thinking, start throwing stuff around. I mean, I know your bonds in May. Y'all got to make those decisions pretty quick. But we'd really like to be involved a little earlier in the project. But this is still a lot better than somebody passing a bond and then hiring a construction manager. Those are the toughest ones to go into, and we see it all the time. We talked about it. Like I said, you're probably going to see general conditions on this project somewhere between $32,000 to $36,000 a month range. Just depends how many superintendents and how you do things, but that's a negotiation thing that we can go through. You'll see a fee of probably 2.5, 2.7% construction fee on something like this.
On this size, I mean, theoretically, if it's CMA, the fee should be a little less than that, simply because one has no risk and one has risk. And, you know, the cost to take that risk is borne by us as a CMAR contractor.
How much less? When you say a little less?
You know,
Do you want to know what we see? And another ones that we've been a part of, you see anywhere 1.65, 2%,
yeah,
2.25%, and that's between the $25 to $50 million range.
yeah.
We see, that's just.
Yeah, but either way, you should know pre-construction costs, general conditions, and fee before you sign a contract. You should know what it's going to cost you up front. I mean, that's your duty as a school board to the community. Either method, it would make no difference.
Like I said, it's an open project. It's easy to get those. I mean, we're talking about them openly now, so we see that in most projects that we submit on. That's part of the process. I went and turned in fees at Pleasant Grove today, so on a project, that's pretty standard.
Always in K through 12, there's been a propensity for people to kind of game the system, to try to put as many GCs as possible into the cost of work packages. one of the things we seldom ever are, and we do a ton of school work that we get selected on, is we're seldom ever the lowest cost when you turn in at the beginning of a, turn in for an RFQ. We like to think we tend to be the lowest cost at the end of the project, because what we put in there is what we legitimately think this is a real general condition, and, you should know that up front.
We turned in at Lone Oak a couple of weeks ago and interviewed there. 1.65 on fee, 1% general conditions. A superintendent, I mean, if you got a good superintendent, that guy makes $120,000 a year. I mean, you just take that to a percentage of that project, he's more than 1%. So that's not realistic. So that's when people put that stuff into cost of work, and they don't put it in their real general conditions. When you see our general conditions, we will work with the architect, and we can both go through a list of things with you of what our general conditions are. And if they tell us to put office trailer in there, office trailer will be in general conditions. We won't stick it in cost of work. If temporary fencing is put in general conditions, it'll be there. It won't be in cost of work. Because those things can fluctuate from project to project. You don't know right now when you're bidding this how much temporary fencing you're going to need here to protect your kids. You don't. But, if you want to see those, and those numbers can fluctuate quite a bit. You're talking $25,000, $50,000 to $100,000 in temporary fencing to protect your kids, and people are sticking it in different places. You want to know that. And $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 here and there adds up pretty quick when you're going into a bond program. But that's the kind of things that we see.
What other questions do you have for them in regard to CMAR?
Can you give an example? You mentioned how, where y'all have seen like y'all's max price end up when y'all are taking the risk, how it's benefited the school and saved the school from coming out, especially right now in these unknown times. Do y'all have an example of that recently?
So, we work for cost savings. I mean, it's a benefit. We like to do a 50-50 cost savings when we go to GMP. If there are ways that we can go with the architect, one big thing is mechanical. Sometimes what spec there could be different types of equipment or different brands of equipment that's equivalent that can save money, but we can save money in that way. We look at giving money back to the district. You see 100% back to the district, 50-50 split. If we're working that hard, we like to ask for a 50-50 split on that. And what are some other examples we've seen recently?
Well, for instance, the subcontractor at a school that we were working on, I won't say he failed, he had some problems. We were able to come in and take over. It cost us money, but it's our risk because that's our subcontractor, not your subcontractor.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to bear the cost, because the schedule is our responsibility as well. I mean, just like the budget is.
And that would be the other thing. The biggest thing is, if you do have to, if there are changes where the risk falls back to us, you won't see the balloon on the backside of the GMP. We're working for that amount of money.
And it's changing. It's not a school project. It's actually a federal project that we bid in the middle of this year, and we have to hold our price for 120 days. The end of 120 days in October, they put out an amendment that said, can you give us a price to hold it until 12/31? We went back to our subcontractors, and the project went from 18 million to just over 20 million just in subcontractor costs. And 2 weeks ago, I received an amendment that said, can you send in revised pricing to hold till March 31? And we're repricing that now, and it will probably be between 22 and 23 million. So basically in 6 to 9 months, the project went, it's a hard bid, firm fixed price from 18 million to 22.5 to 23 million dollars. So that is the kind of escalation that we're seeing in the market today. And you don't see it slowing down.
It's hard to bid anything if it's increasing 25 to 30%
Yes.
every 6 months.
So
It's
what we're
6 to
going
9
to do,
months.
I mean, one thing that we're going to do, and we're doing it at Prairie Land now, used to, you would buy the the product as you go along. We're gonna buy it now. I mean, we're working at North Lamar now. We've got, doing, one thing we did at North Lamar on their, project, you know, their we're doing the entire bond program. They had, it's about $3 million worth of HVAC renovations throughout all their campuses. So we pulled those out. And, you know, we need to work with the architect on different things. I don't know if there's as much opportunity here, but we would talk to the architect like we did with our architect there. We pulled that out and we're gonna self-perform that work. They're one-for-one replacements. So, I mean, we're HVAC contract, we understand that. We pulled that out, we've got 40 units sitting in our warehouse right now. We bought them just right away. Same thing with steel at Prairie Land, we bought the metal buildings. We're gonna work with you, we're gonna come in and ask for stored material, to pay for stored material, early electrical, mechanical, plumbing fixtures. We're gonna ask for that, because we're gonna get it on site right away. We're not gonna wait longer in the project like we normally would to help with some of those things. But with that $3 million worth of HVAC at North Lamar, we did a $280,000 drainage project, the same thing. We pulled it out, and we're self-performing that. You take off, you know, probably around 10% of construction manager fee in general conditions, and then another 7-8% of architect fees where we're doing that project and how. You add that up, it's a lot of money. So it helps offset some of these escalation things that we see by just being a little bit more creative and working a little bit harder and doing some things in the project.
We're not getting subcontractors to hold numbers long at all, especially anything with steel. Cranes, you know, they'll hold their price a week. I mean, and when we have a fabrication shop, so we buy a lot of raw steel. And literally, they were giving us a price, and that's your price today. You know, if you wait a week to order, you need to call back and we'll give you another price. I mean, it makes it very difficult, but that's just the industry that, you know, it's the shape it's in right now. It's not pleasant for anybody.
So the bid process, I guess, will be like a day to everyone to have their bids in, and then y'all open bids, and that's open to the board if
Oh,
they
absolutely.
choose-
We would,
choose
Yeah,
to-
we'd love for you
we
to
would
come up.
ask
Or
somebody to come.
we usually do it at our office.
Yeah.
We did one at Melissa recently, and their servers jammed, and it took forever for us to get bids in, so we like to do it at our office, and you'd come there. Like I said, we'll do a pre-bid date, go into the bid date, and then we'll bring all the bids in at that point. And like I said, we'll rank them, we'll qualify them, we'll do all that. You'll have your input, because there may be somebody in this community that may be a little higher, and then we need to use them, because y'all know how good of a contractor they are. And you know, CMAR gives you that control still, because it's not
We're
allowed.
gonna give you a suggestion. Here's who we think and why. If you have suggestions, you have preferences, you know, you have preferred contractors we're not familiar with, we wanna know who those guys are.
You
know,
got a
we
guy
want to
working
get
on all your
bids from them.
you got a guy working on your mechanical systems, and he knows everything about this district, especially in a remodel and additions. Yeah, I mean, we wanna talk to those guys.
Any more questions?
Thanks, guys.
All right,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. I need to ask Miss Lisa to step out while they presented. We can ask her to come back in if you have any other questions in regard to CMA of what she presented last time. Again, we do have on the agenda, last month we had on the agenda to choose a delivery method. It's back on the agenda today, so.
Max, will you see if Miss Lisa's out in the, Gallagher's out in the hall, so that she can enter back if she wants to?
Let's talk about it.
So thoughts?
Any thoughts?
No.
Just
Taking a breath.
And to go back to give some history, which we've talked about, you know, the last two projects that have taken place at Mount Vernon, the elementary was done CMAR, and the gymnasium field house was done CMA. So Mount Vernon has been a part of each one of those the last two times. But I don't think any of us, you weren't even on board that time, were you?
I was on the last one with the gym.
So the tail end, all of it,
That's all I was in.
so.
But I don't remember having this much discussion and whatnot on CMA and CMAR.
I also want to think, if I remember, I talked to Ms. Storer today, I think at the time, and Bobby, you can maybe help answer this question, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I think when the gym was done at CMA, the person in your position currently,
Yes, John Ball.
involved,
Here, in Cushing one.
okay.
It was devolved, yeah, and he was pretty sharp on some stuff, I think, too. Yeah, was he here kind of when
He
you
was here, left right after I got here.
yeah. We're in different times now, we're in a different
Yeah, we're in a
political
different
situation,
times now.
and
I like the guaranteed maximum price, and I like them taking the risk personally.
But I think it goes back to something that they added to it, talked about, was, you know, just the uniqueness of what this project brings to play.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is going to be a very unique project.
and the renovation.
Very complicated.
Yeah,
It's the unknowns you have in taking something and reconstructing it, and you don't know what you're gonna run into. Like I said, if you could just start from the ground up, you know it's ground and you go up with everything. Here, you don't know what you're gonna get tied into, what we're trying to do. And so I think with all that stuff, that risk is probably better for us, or for me personally, I think that risk is better because we don't know what we're gonna get tied in with.
It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve either construction manager agent or construction manager at risk for potential bond projects as presented. At this time, I make a motion that we go construction manager at risk. Do I have a second for construction manager at risk? Seconded by Robert. All for CMAR, construction manager at risk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7-0. Mount Vernon ISD. If we enter into a project, we'll be going CMAR. That is item B. Moving on to item C, consider and approve adopting resolution to convene the district school health advisory shack to recommend curriculum materials for human sexuality instruction. You wanna explain that to us?
I will do my best to give you some explanation on that. So,
We can help if needed.
yes, she can. Would you like to even talk about it?
It's just a process that, the district goes through in order to adopt those type of materials. We're not doing that now, we're just looking at the process at this time.
So if you look at the resolution, it basically is to have the shack get together 2 times to talk and,
This
basically.
is a legislative requirement. This changed with the last legislative session that requires the SHAC committee to now oversee the human sexuality instructional materials. And this is the first step of that process, requires board resolution. This is the TASB template that was provided through policy services on that resolution.
So again, you are not adopting any human sexuality instruction tonight. It's just a resolution to get our SHAC committee together, to meet a minimum of 2 times to bring you a recommendation, as this says in our May 2022 board meeting.
And if we don't like their recommendation, we vote it down.
Also, the reason that we're prolonging, I'm sorry, can you hear me okay? Is because we are also in adoption year for health education, instructional materials, and that is embedded in our health education standards. So the human sexuality component is part of health curriculum. It has always been in there. Starts as young as grade 4, so it is embedded. And so because those materials are up for adoption through Commissioner, I've talked to Jennifer and Tracy about, let's see what the adopted instructional materials are. There is a lot of debate going on right now. If you've been following any TEA news, the committees cannot even agree on materials to adopt. I think at this point, we only have one listed for middle school. They are debating the elementary level. Quaver Education is kind of the running person for that. We use that for our music curriculum. It's a great curriculum resource. But as you can imagine, this is a very debated topic and a very controversial topic. So what we would recommend is that a board member be present as part of the SHAC committee so that we do have board representation as they go through reviewing those materials for adoption. So we would be utilizing through Jennifer overseeing as well as Tracy as our SHAC person to see what the state is currently adopting. Just have that as our starting point before anything is presented for board approval. So it's been vetted, at least through the review committee through TEA, just to give you history.
So, we send this to Shaq, bring it back to us, we vote on it.
Yep.
So I need a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution of Board to convene the District Shaq Committee to recommend materials for human sexuality instruction. Do I have a motion for that? Motion made by Leanne, I second, all four. That's 7-0. Item D, consider and approve adopting resolution requesting the Attorney General to file suit on behalf of the district seeking an injunction against COVID-19 mandates related to the Head Start program.
Okay, what this is about is as of November the 30th, the federal government had passed a mandate that our Head Start program, teachers are supposed to be vaccinated or test weekly, and all kids are supposed to wear a mask.
How old are these kids?
4 years
4
old.
years old.
So what this resolution does, joins us together with numerous other schools in the Region 7 and Region 8 area that I know of. I think there's gonna be more across the state who are going to basically ask our State Attorney General to fight for us on this. And so that is what this resolution does, is allows us to join that. You'll see on the second page of that resolution, basically authorizing the President of the Board, in absence of the Superintendent, take any action necessary to carry out the wishes of the Board, including but not limited to seeking the assistance of the Texas Attorney General's Office, sign an engagement letter to retain the Texas Attorney General's Office representation and assist in the district's legal counsel in carrying out the wishes of the Board as expressed in this resolution. Again, we are not pushing this with our Head Start for them to mask up. I feel that that's kind of what the stance we've taken as a school and community kind of throughout this whole thing with 4-year-olds. Everything that we were told first was 10 and under didn't have to. Now they're coming back with this, and so we're, with your blessing, we're going to continue with business as usual at this time. And so I'm asking for the resolution to join these other schools to basically do that.
Any questions on that one? I make a motion that we approve the resolution requesting the Attorney General to file suit on behalf of the district seeking an injunction against COVID-19 mandates related to the Head Start program as presented. Do I have a second? Seconded by Brooks. Any further discussion? All for that one then? 7-0.
Thank you.
Now,
I'm gonna ask that, can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Could we possibly move one more thing on the agenda, please? Could we allow Ms. Desiree to give her House Bill 3 early childhood presentation before we move it to the Facilities Committee, please?
any objections to that?
Okay with that? Okay. Thank you.
Gotta grow tonight. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of present an update on the progress that our elementary campus has made towards meeting our progress measures for House Bill 3. So I know it's in board book. Can you tell them what page?
It is, show what page on there? Mine's on 104 in the hard copy. Couldn't get my online to move.
I don't have that.
Under 8.
It's 8A in our,
Yeah.
online, 104.
Okay, so to determine our progress towards those goals, we have universal screeners. And so we have 3 in particular that we use, and they're given at 3 different intervals: the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. And so that is iStation, which iStation is, it's a computer adaptive diagnostic assessment. It's nationally normed, it's comprehensive, and it gives immediate feedback to teachers and students on where they are. And it places them in a prescriptive plan to kind of fill their gaps. The next one is our benchmark assessment system, and this is what I'll refer to as the BAS. And it's a one-on-one reading assessment given by the teacher with the student. The teacher is able to use that assessment to determine the student's independent reading level and instructional reading level, observe reading behaviors, and engage the kids in a comprehension conversation. The next one that we just started using is M-Class. House Bill 3, the state of Texas came out and said, you know, you have to choose between these sets of screeners, and elementary campus chose M-Class. And it assesses what I like to call the Fab 5: phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. And so we're going to look at our beginning of the year data and look at our current progress towards meeting our goals for the 2022 school year. So we'll start with kindergarten, and Progress 1 measure states the percent of kinder students that score on Tier 1 on the ISIP, which is iStation, early reading will increase from 53% to 75% by June of 2024. And so under that in the green, you can see our current measure progress is 72%. So 72% of our students in kindergarten are currently meeting that goal at the beginning of the year, which is huge. So that's 8%. We're exceeding this goal by 8%. The next progress measure, 1.1, the percent of kinder students that score a level D on the VAS assessment will increase from 57% to 80% by June of 2024. A level D is just grade level expectancy. That's an independent reading level for kinder that we would expect at the end of the year. We don't have any data for that yet because that assessment is not developmentally appropriate at the beginning of the year. They're really learning to identify letters and match letter sounds. So they will take that in January. So in January, we'll have our middle of the year data for VAS. I will tell you though that in May of last year, the kinder students, I know it's a different population, but they exceeded that by 9%. This is a new student population, and in kinder we do have a higher student to teacher ratio this year. We've got a bigger kinder class. But with our current ISIP, I feel like we will definitely meet this goal as well. So in looking at first grade, Progress Measure 2 says the percent of first grade students that score on Tier 1 on the ISIP early reading will increase from 58% to 78% by June of 2024. Currently, at the beginning of the year, we're at 63%. So we are 5% below our target for end of the year. For Progress Measure 2.1, the percent of first grade students that score a level J on the VAS will increase from 16% to 80% by June of 2024. Currently, we're at 55% at the beginning of the year, so we're missing this target by 11%. And looking at our second grade progress measures. So I want to talk about second grade really quick before we kind of look at this. Clearly in second grade, as you can see, it's our lowest. We're missing those targets by the most. This grade level, along with one of our other student populations, was the grade level that was most impacted by COVID. These are our kindergarten students that missed those last few months of instruction where they're really building those foundational literacy skills. So when I get through talking about this, I'm telling you what we're doing in response to all this. But I wanted to preface that with saying this group of students, along with our current third graders, were the groups that were the most impacted. So progress measure 3, the percent of second grade students that score on tier 1 on the ISD early reading will increase from 53% to 75%. We're currently at 48%. So that's 16% below. On progress measure 3.1, the percent of second grade students that score level M on the BAS will increase from 12% to 80% by June of 2024. We're currently at 40%. So again, that's 26% below where we would expect them and want them to be to meet our goal for the end of the year. And I included our M-class data. It's not tied to our House Bill 3 goals, but I thought maybe you might want to see it. The number of students at or above benchmark is not what we would like, but it also is more information that we use to determine our next steps, our plan of action. But I do also want to note, there is a slight learning curve with the M-class assessment. This is our first time to use it at the beginning of the year. We received a day of training, but there's no training like really getting in there and doing it yourself. And so there's been some different things that we've noticed that maybe weren't done like we should. So I'm really anxious to see how our beginning of the year data and our middle of the year data kind of compare. And that assessment window for M-class ends on December 15th. So then we'll have our middle of the year data. Okay, so now what? So some measures that we have taken are all of our staff at the elementary, including Ms. Orrin and myself, are currently in the process of the Texas Reading Academy. Yay! And so it's been great. So we are all in the process of the Reading Academy. Based on all of this, really for the past 2 years, we noticed a need in needing a phonics program that was explicit and systematic. And you can see that based on the data. And so this year we have purchased a research-based phonics program, Reading Horizons, and Hegarty Phonological Awareness Program. And so our K through 2 teachers are using both of these. We've received a lot of training. Each teacher is required to use them with fidelity. What we had noticed is we didn't have a phonics program, so it was kind of like a smorgasbord of phonics instruction going on within the classes with whatever they could find. And so now it's systematic and it builds upon grade level using the same terminology and the same coding so that it's kind of a seamless transition. We've also had a Reading Horizons coach come out and observe our teachers and give them feedback, and also coach Ms. Orrin and I on what to look for. And one thing that we all our teachers are really receptive. I mean, they're really receptive to growing and taking in that feedback, and it was a really good experience. And they're scheduled to come back out in the spring as well and observe and give feedback on different aspects of the instruction. Another thing that we've done is we have made first grade self-contained. Research supports there's a strong correlation between student achievement and self-contained classrooms between K through 2, so first grade is now self-contained. Based on informal conversations with teachers and our walkthrough data, we didn't have enough small group instruction going on in the classrooms. It was really inconsistent among classrooms. And so that's something that's really been a focus for us this year, Because as you can see, especially with that second grade group, there are a lot of gaps. Well, how do you close those gaps? You can't do it, all those kids aren't on the same level, so you have to use differentiated instruction in small groups, and so that's really been a focus. Our lesson plan template, we changed that to really reflect small group instruction. We've added that into the literacy block as well as RTI. So teachers are having to put in there what they're doing in their RTI block to meet those needs of the above level, at level, and below level students. Our teachers are consistently tutoring after school hours. I know y'all see that, so that's great. And we've also implemented collaborative planning, including our instructional coaches working with our teams and planning to really dig deeper into the standards, the IFDs, and all of that. Do y'all have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Desiree. Thank you.
Let's knock out these enrollment totals and then we'll be
Yep.
done except for our facility update.
Enrollment totals for the other discussion item, as of 12/6/15/19. Again, that's still up from last year, so where we are.
Okay. For you on the facilities committee, thank y'all for bearing with us. This is probably the longest meeting that we've had in a long time. So, those seats are getting hard, I know it, but we need y'all because we're fixing to, Mary's probably gonna get us some numbers and different things here in a little while and get down to the good stuff. Are we ready?
Yep, we're ready. I
Okay.
think so. Ms. Mary, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Does everyone need to stretch?
Yeah.
Again, facility committee, thank you for being a part of this again tonight, coming again. As I shared with you in November, the reason for this tonight is because, as you see, we've not had to have each board member at each one of our facility meetings. There's been 2 or 3 each time. Tonight brings all of us together so that the board as a whole can be a part of this, and they can be a part of the discussion of what we're talking about as well.
Alright, so, thank you all for coming. So there's gonna be a lot of information, let's get in. Alright, it's not coming.
Mary, is this like gonna take an hour? 30 minutes? If y'all need a restroom break, the restrooms are down there and over here, so. do
That's
what
up to
need
you
do.
all. Yeah, maybe restroom break.
So just rock and roll and do what you need to do, and if we need to check out, we will.
Yeah. And I have a clicker too. And I have one. Yeah.
Just wait. Wait to step up and say something.
Okay, so last time we met, I went through some different scenarios of where the different pieces of the project can go and a very overview of what the scope can be. So I have gone back and done a pretty extensive exercise, a programming exercise. I've started to look at typical square footages that we see and starting to assign some dollar figures to those square footages. We did talk about having 2 propositions on the bond election. So the first proposition is going to be really the meat of the project, including a new band hall, high school media center, VOAG expansion and renovation. Last meeting, there was a lot of interest in adding a ag barn to the scope, enclosing the breezeway for added security, expanding on the high school cafeteria and kitchen, so they're not having to cart food across the campus. Administration offices, and that would cover admin offices, junior high / intermediate, as well as high school offices. And then various renovated spaces, because a lot of those existing programs would be moving into new construction and allowing some dollars to convert those existing spaces. I will say that is the renovated spaces. Last meeting, we did get the drawings, the existing drawings from the district. I've had those scanned in. Oh, and don't let me forget to give you the flash drive for that, because I have it. We've had all those drawings digitized and put in, but we're currently redrawing all of that into our software, so that's gonna take some time to do that. But, so I've given some estimates on the square footages for that. And then lastly, service, which this number is typically anywhere from 30 to 35% of your programmed square footage. This is your mechanical rooms, electrical rooms, technology rooms, hallway circulation space, the actual wall thicknesses, all of that. So that number can definitely vary. I'm estimating on the higher side right now, just to be conservative. And then as we really get into the design, hopefully that number can start to come down as we get more efficient with the floor plan. Moving on to the right, the Prop B. This is where we talked about new baseball, softball fields, turfing the football field, home stands for $3,000, pre-manufactured press box, which there is a rule on code that cannot exceed 500 square feet without having to do an elevator. So keeping that under that 500 square feet, as well as additional restrooms, concessions, tickets, associated spaces for those areas. So I'm going to probably scare you all, but so looking at the different dollars, this is what we're seeing right now. We've heard a lot tonight about the cost of construction is very high. I have gone through and I'm not just throwing one blanket number at these different spaces because they are treated differently. For instance, your fine arts, where the storm shelter is going to be, is a much more expensive space than, say, the offices. So there, I did account for that. And so I actually have my very elaborate spreadsheet in front of me if I need to reference anything too. Additionally, so you'll see down here, is there a thing? Okay, oh, kind of, it's not really pointing, but that's okay. So down at the bottom, so the total, the 35 million is new construction program space. That renovation is, again, like I said, an estimate of square footages. So that would be something, as we move through design, we would need to keep an eye on scope creep, because it's easy once you renovate one space, then it starts snowballing, and then you want to renovate everything. So just something to keep in mind. As well, we always need to keep in the back of our head soft costs. So what soft costs are, it's all your fees. So like my fee, architect's fee, any testing, geotech, survey, furniture, equipment, all of that, inspections, all of those owner-driven numbers are really lumped into that soft cost. And typically that's around 20% of the construction cost. So with all that, we are looking currently at right under 49, or right under 50 million. Moving on to Prop B, we're right under 10 million for that. So some of these numbers I have reached out to like sports subcontractors who do turf and Sturdy Steel who does a lot of bleachers, and trying to start that conversation with what are you seeing right now? We know the prices are all over the place. So they actually helped advise me on some of these dollar figures. So I feel pretty confident on those as well. So I know we're gonna have a discussion about really just what all does that mean. So I started breaking that out again. These drawings are similar to what we talked about at the last meeting. I did make a few tweaks, including like flipping the baseball and softball as we talked about, where a possible ag barn could go and those kinds of things. But I did want to break out about what I'm thinking for these dollar figures. So for fine arts, that's definitely going to be a huge chunk of it. It has the largest amount of square feet in the program dedicated to it. I also want to say part of why these numbers are so high is these are the more elaborate parts of the building that require a lot more mechanical, a lot more higher volume type spaces than just a typical 25 by 25 foot classroom space that you can repeat and gain that economy. These rooms are much more specialized and have a lot more things going with those. So anyway, fine arts. So we talked about band hall, all the associated practice rooms, storage, dressing rooms, a black box theater was talked about, as well as art. And then I wanted to devote at least $1 million to the old band hall, and I think that can be carpet replacement, new paint, just kind of give that space a refresh if it got converted for junior high. So media center, in the last discussion we did talk about demoing the existing high school media and utilizing that area of the campus and really start to give a new face. So new media center, so similarly 1.8 million for that. Additionally, similar to the fine arts, I wanted to allocate some dollars to combining the two middle school or intermediate junior high libraries into one. So there would be some dollars associated with that renovation. Agriculture. So the expansion, so the dollar figure for adding new square footage is obviously going to be more. So I did break those out into two different numbers. So I'm looking at about a $3 million number for the expansion, and then a $2,500 for the renovation, and that would be a complete renovation for that space. For the barn, I was assuming it would be a pre-engineered metal building and allowed 1.7 for that. And if anyone has questions, please don't hesitate. Additionally, on that VOAG, I did increase the square footage allowed for that expansion because last time I believe I had it undersized. Cafeteria and kitchen, $5 million, and that would be, again, total renovation of the existing space. If we are looking to save money, I see some dollars for that particular item, that maybe we build the kitchen, but we don't touch as much of the dining hall type space as a possible solution. But this would be more like totally from scratch.
How much would that cut off from that total if we looked at just the kitchen?
That's why I brought my spreadsheet. If we didn't do any dining at all, and it would be purely just a kitchen, it would probably be about 2.2 million. maybe half, because there would be some tie-in, so. I also, yeah.
If we did that, and you may not know this, but where would you feed your students if we just did a kitchen and we're kind of adding on to this one here? Would you still feed them in there, I guess? Have to?
Well, we haven't gotten that far in the design yet, but, we may be able to still add the kitchen where we have it circled. It just wouldn't be as much new square footage. And we could just tie in directly with that existing space. I mean, it's hard to say without drawing it and really going through the design, but just off the top of my head, that kind of makes the most sense for now.
Any way to make it where we're preparing food, we're adding, square footage for sure, drainage, plumbing, additional, all of that, as well as some, appliances and things.
Yeah.
So in essence, you're still saying come out, we're just not coming out as much.
Correct.
To add seating space.
Right. And that's a conversation you all can have of how much is it comfortable, the amount of space that's currently in that dining room? Or are you running multiple lunches that you wanna add square footage? And we could talk about children.
Right now, you're not gonna have enough space for that. I mean, I'm kind of referring over here, but yeah, you take out space for a full kitchen.
No, I don't think, we're not talking about utilizing current space, we're adding space for kitchen. Yeah, but just not adding in additional seating is what she's saying.
Correct. Cause I had 7,000 square feet for like a dining room.
So you're saying the dining hall to seat 300, because they're running 2 lunches right now with 260, 250?
Yeah, expanding the dining hall to seat 300 to me serves no purpose, because you're still gonna be having 2 lunches as we do now. So if you're gonna expand the dining space, it needs to be enough to accommodate everybody. If not, it's better just to keep having 2 lunches and do what you're saying and create the kitchen. So.
You figure they're running, yeah, I was gonna say space for at least 250.
Okay.
Minimum, run 250.
We still need to, I mean, we'll probably still need to, again, add some renovation dollars to that, but anything renovation is always gonna save more money than brand new building, so that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep going, and then we can always jump around and backtrack as we need to. Okay, different offices, so I did go ahead and break those out. So district admin, 1.6, and let me look at my program for that. So that allowed for 14 offices, 14 plus superintendent, workroom, conference room, multiple restrooms, everyone. And then for intermediate, junior high, there's just less quantity of offices needed. That's why that dollar figure is less. And then additionally, high school, we can still use some of that space and then add on as well as we start creating that new entry area.
Okay.
And then, this was similar to what you saw earlier, but for the Prop B, most of these are more line items than actual square footage numbers, with the exception of the 1.9, which would be for restrooms. And that would be hard to reduce just because a lot of the number of restrooms is driven by code, so that would be harder to reduce.
I don't guess that has any kind of a demolition or anything cost added to it, like if you moved your baseball fields, would we keep our old baseball fields back there and keep on maintaining them, or would we just?
If we build new, we wouldn't. We not be a need to.
Reuse the light poles
Well, and there was talk at one time, even where the ag barn, that yellow box on the right is where I thought ag could possibly go, but say if Prop B passed, that could move maybe on one of the existing fields, but it'd be hard to plan that now, not knowing which way the bond goes. Right. But even if Prop B didn't, and you still wanted the barn, I think there's
I'm
enough,
gonna say at
there's enough
$50 million,
land.
that barn's gonna be one of the, that's a want that, that might, we might not have to worry about where we're gonna put it. In my mind, that's just me thinking, but
Okay. So just a summary of what goes into that renovation. And like I said, the more we develop the drawings, the tighter these numbers would be. But as you can see, there was talk of special education moving into the existing admin office area. So there would need to be some renovation dollars for that. But additionally, that frees up where they're moving out of for possible CTE programs. But I think some of those changes can be done pretty minimally depending on what new program needs to go into those spaces. Additionally, the junior high media center, the VOAG renovations, high school old offices, and the old band hall as well. And then brief summary just in graphic form. Here's some of the square footages. And like I said, I have my full program that we can tweak and go over any way we need to. And then back to the summary. So one big wild card right now for me is really that the service number, that 9 million, it is quite high. So as the floor plan develops, so that's about 35%, as I mentioned, which is pretty typical. If we got down to, let's see, let me do the calculation real quick. So say if we got to 30% and being efficient, that would be 7.7. So there is a swing in that. Yeah, that just depends on how we start laying out the plan. One thing that you all would want to know as well, if we end up working together, the existing mechanical system is a 4-pipe system, which is more expensive. RTU, so your typical rooftop unit, is going to be more economical. They don't last nearly as long. So I would recommend going back with the existing system just so it's all cohesive, but there is a figure that goes with that.
Okay, committee, questions? I know some of you are sitting there saying, whoa, now McCully, you said last month kind of what we were looking at was around maybe 30, 35. So 6 months ago, as you just heard HWH share with us a while ago, as Josh and Aaron and I began kind of having this conversation with some others, you know, we started talking as, again, just very ballpark figures of what we were thinking, not knowing square footages as well and everything we were doing. You know, this piece right here was, we were thinking 22, 25 maybe?
yeah, we
Even at
never,
that time?
we never thought about
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, no, we never got anywhere near 50.
You know, and then, but also what Mary's done is the additional, some other additional pieces of, you know, even working some, no, you're good, working some on the the current band hall, which would become basically just a middle school band hall if we do a new fine arts center. Again, moving some special ed offices into the main admin to give more room for CTE. You know, those are additional things that we had not even talked about as well at the time or thought about. That's another $6.5 million of what she shows. So, a part of what we've got to talk about tonight, one is, thankfully Christian's here. He's been running, I've had him over there texting, running numbers real quick. So So the max amount of tax rate that we could even ask the public for is an additional roughly 29 cents. Okay? So you wanna speak on that just a second? Can I put you on the spot? You wanna speak on that just a second?
Sure.
Of what that 29 cents could look like?
Yeah, so I just ran here, so I'm Christian Merritt, I'm the financial advisor for the district. So as I've been running these numbers, there's obviously different ways you can structure bonds. You have existing bonds, which will be falling off in the future years. And so one of the scenarios I put together is one where we kind of wrap it around so the total debt service portfolio is level. Does that make sense? So we're delaying some principal in order to manage the tax rate a little bit. So under that scenario, if we wanted to do 60, let me see, if we wanted to do just a full 60 million here, we would be looking at 18 cents on a tax rate increase. Okay? It would be 0.18. A more uniform, where you're paying an equal payment every year on this bond specifically, it would drop off in the future as your existing bonds were to drop off. For the full 60 million, would require a 29-cent increase, which takes you right up to the max.
Okay?
Conveniently, what we've decreased it over the last 3 years.
That's right.
18 cents.
That's right, yeah. So, and that is true. So, what the district has done, over the last 3 years is, the tax rate on the M&O side, on the maintenance operations side, has decreased a total of 18 cents over the last 3 years. Okay, so in essence, if we were looking at doing this and moving forward, then we would basically be asking the public if they would be willing to put that 18 cents back on. Okay? Questions on that part?
So dollar amount, you say 18 cents, what does that mean?
For the average homeowner?
Yes.
Christian, you have that? I know you have that. I'll give him a chance to pull that up. I want to think it was somewhere in the neighborhood 500, 55, 75, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So average home value is roughly $222,000. Again, through the community meetings, we were talking about how we were going to anticipate that the May of '22 constitutional amendment election for homestead is going to increase from $25,000 to $40,000, which would take the taxable value to $182,000. An 18-cent increase would be an annual dollar increase of $329, or a monthly increase of $27.32.
Yes, sir.
Can you look at this kind of like that's what you want, and then we start kicking stuff out of what you need?
That's the next, that was, well, in a roundabout way, that's where we're going, because what I am gonna ask us to do, I'm gonna ask us to prioritize the pieces up here that make the most sense, or what we really need, in essence, what you're saying. But we're about to get there in just a second. Other questions in regard to the taxing piece?
I think the public's gonna wanna know when current bonds expire, so, you know, you're trading one for the other, how does it work out, you know? I mean, I think that could be a selling point if it's like, well, this expires and this starts, and you really don't see a difference versus, well, after paying increased taxes for 5 years, then it'll fall off, you know?
You wanna address that?
Yep. So, the district currently has 3 sets of bonds that have been refinanced on their own at separate times and stuff like that. The first one falls off in '22, the next one falls off in '29, and the 2014 is done in 2034.
Okay. Other questions in regard to the taxing piece or the dollar amount piece?
I guess if we did the full 60, it's 18 cents. I mean, what would it look like at like 40 and 50, just so,
Million?
yeah,
Give me a couple minutes.
yeah, just.
Anthony, there's no Zoom questions?
No,
Okay, yes, for those of you who are on Zoom, if you are watching, I think Anthony put it in the chat, but if you have a question, please type it in. They're monitoring that, and they will ask it for you, so you can be a part of the conversation. Okay, as you're looking at the list, as Christian's kind of coming up with that number, I mean, if I'm more the positive side than the negative side most time, but I mean, if there's a piece that we need to take a look at not being a part of, let's start here first, on Proposition A. What is something that you think that from, again, now think back to the conversations we've had and what we've talked about, but if there's something that, or maybe let me just go look, what is the highest priority for you there on that?
The ag barn,
Yes.
is
Well, the
probably
cafeteria issues
last touched
for
in
them to
42
It's
years.
going on like 42, 43 years old.
Yeah.
we're talking about existing ag department
Correct.
building.
Not the little barn, but we're talking the ag facility right now.
They're saying expansion.
The
Yeah.
renovation of the ag.
Renovation
facility
and
was-
expansion.
To me, that and the cafeteria.
Yeah, the cafeteria, yes.
Cafeteria would be number 2.
Okay.
I agree.
But not expansion of the cafeteria, all the way out. I think it either needs to be big enough to seat about 250 and have a kitchen, or it needs to be an expansion big enough to seat the entire 500, one of the two. Does it need to be somewhere in the middle?
Okay.
I'd agree.
Anybody disagree with that?
And on that, I would like to add, you wanna make, if you're gonna do the whole thing, you're better off to make it for more than what you need right now,
Exactly.
because you don't wanna be back in this shape in a few years.
Ingram, how many people
that
show up to
We're having to go back to split
ag
levels anyway.
banquet?
Pretty good.
Maybe.
Well, in the last few years, it's been about 200 or so. Before that, it was a little more, then we hit COVID, and, we're just now really kind of coming back, because, we didn't have a banquet there for a little bit, so last year, I'm gonna say there was somewhere around 175. I was down, so I didn't get to come to the whole banquet, and ended up having to go home.
That's right.
So, I really didn't see the crowd, but I bought food for 200 people.
Parker,
And
what do
pretty
you
much
have?
food left, so.
Band banquet.
125, 150, I think it's around roughly 150. Yeah, it's 150.
Mr. Glover, are there other banquets that are held there? Trying to think as well.
Athletic banquet.
The chair banquet there.
Your banquet?
The athletic banquet in the past, we had to move extra tables in, just to
Yeah.
to get
But
everybody seated.
to be quite frank, to seat 250 comfortably, it still needs to be a little bigger. I mean, 250.
You're crunched at
You're crunched at
250.
250, you're really crunching it. That's why we have kids sitting down in the Tiger Center and some of the cafeteria and even down at the field house during lunch, just to get space. Yeah.
So Mary, which I know, again, it gets into the drawing when you're talking about this. I'm just curious in regard to where the serving line is now, if that's the direction, going out the direction of the kitchen, as that goes out, I mean, there's some additional square footage for seating that is going to, that's gonna come with that, according to
Yeah.
how far you go out, correct?
And even if we're building out, we don't have to build out a whole new, it can be half and half. Like, we could expand it to gain another 100 seats.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be,
Okay.
Everybody, so
Okay,
there's always a good.
okay.
And you mentioned too that the underspace under that, could that be used for students to have their lunch?
That would be up to you all, programming it, if you would want to split it up that way.
Would it be accessible to where
Yes.
there wouldn't be a traffic issue?
Yes.
But,
I mean,
so-
You're
so-
not gonna have stairs going down there though, from the cafeteria.
That's what I'm getting at, as
Yeah,
far as
I
traffic,
mean,
because
that's
we
the
don't want
problem.
kids going through the hall.
You have to be toting food down the stairwell and out unless you're gonna have, I don't think you've got a stairwell. Right, there's not a stairwell here, going down to the lower level.
I mean, these numbers could account for a stairwell.
Yeah, okay.
like that circulation number,
Yeah.
that all
They
of the
incorporate
stair
that.
and corridors is all wrapped up in that.
Can I ask a
Yes,
clarifying
ma'am.
question real quick on the first priority of the ag barn expansion for $3 million? Is that the top priority that you're referencing?
Yes, the
Yes.
existing ag facility renovation and expansion, correct? 'Cause
Correct.
there is renovation dollars with that.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
So it is more than just 3 million.
It's more than $3 million. So
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
Let me go to that slide, because I did add it on that one. Oh, there it is. Yeah,
So
so
it's about 5.5.
5.5.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
How long are you looking at paying this off? What is the time frame on this?
What I've been
Either
running,
20 or 25?
25, but this.
We already got one set here, you said 34,
the year.
and the way property values are going up in this county, does that affect any of this bond?
So the way this is structured is Dr. McCullough gave me very strict parameters to be conservative with all these projections. So the interest rates are very conservative. As far as the values go, the values are based on zero growth, which we all can probably assume is not realistic, but it's very
Values
conservative.
double or quadruple or triple this year. Is that gonna affect your tax dollars?
That would be
Will
lower
18
than,
We don't raise taxes in Franklin County, but we do appraise stuff a lot higher. That is something that our appraisal district does do. So are you going to pay on that, if your $250,000 home is $250 now, it's $300 some odd dollars, you said. 5 years from now, if that's a $400,000 home, are you going to pay $600?
so the district has a decision to make of whether or not they are going to lower the tax rate, as the higher values at the same tax rate would generate more money to pay the bonds. Okay?
So back to the question I asked a couple of meetings ago, the people that own property in Franklin County are gonna be the ones that their tax rate is going to go up, that are not ag exempt, age exempt, or Section 8 exempt. Is that correct?
If you don't have exemptions on your property and the county values it higher, your taxes are gonna go up.
Okay.
Okay. What else? What other questions? Okay, so what we've heard, ag expansion and renovation, priority 1. Cafeteria, priority 2.
That ag money, does that
Okay.
include any kind of welders, or is it tables and chairs and different things, I guess?
Is it turnkey versus just shell, right?
It would be turnkey, yes, yes. And the soft cost number, so FF&E, that stands for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So that's a lot of equipment. Now, we can do welding booths and things, but if you have really elaborate, laser cutters or things like that, we may have to look at some of those dollars, but. Because that could be very expensive, so, yeah.
Okay.
Or a CNC machine or something, a CNC machine.
So did y'all hear Aaron's question over here? Aaron's question was making sure that the cost there included the furniture and everything that goes in, and she said yes. All right, so we have over here this, possible third priority being the Fine Arts and the Media Center. And I don't think it can be one or the other. I think it has to be both, because if we're talking brand new Fine Arts Center here, we're doing away with a library that now we have to address and take care of. So if we're doing that, then we're basically saying the, 10 million there is a part of that, that becomes priority number 3. Is everybody on board with that piece?
Based on how it's increasing your program
Yeah, absolutely.
and the retention
So you
rate?
do that, and you do
Okay.
that.
Somebody keeping up with the numbers there, what we're going priority 1, 2, and 3 so far?
Yeah, and I'm
Yes.
keeping notes. So VOAG's number 1, food service number 2, media center, or fine arts was number 3.
It's
Or are they
together.
both?
It's together.
Yes, combined.
Here, 20.5.
Correct.
So
I-
even within the fine arts, at one of our meetings, we included like a black box theater, is that?
That's built into that 8.2, correct?
It is.
Yes, so that would be a part of that.
What does that cost? Any clue? How important is that, Mr. Partridge?
Well, that's the theater department.
Yeah, that's theater.
It takes them to rehearse and practice, not on stage really, in a bigger place. Because currently, Carly is doing like stage work in her classroom on like an older set. And so it kind of gives her a place to actually stage her stuff and not use the auditorium all the time, which ruins the lights faster. The sound system gets used more. So it kind of protects your auditorium from being run down as fast, because right now she's basically doing her class in the auditorium every day because her classroom, I mean, she sees 150 kids a day. They're all in that classroom. That's compared to, black box.
A black box theater is gonna be about $800 to $1 million.
But it's a part of that square footage that you're figuring there inside that building anyway, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
right, but I'm just saying if we take that out, the overall square footage can shrink. So then your cost per square foot goes down.
So is this black box theater benefiting the band or the?
Theater.
Theater.
If you're going fine arts, go fine arts.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't, because now what you're doing is you're pitting one fine arts program against another. So if you're going to invest, that's my 2 cents coming from being fair, make your investment in your fine arts building.
So when looking at, what I'm looking at is the fine arts with the bigger square footage for the band, and I'm not doing what you just said not to do. But then incorporated in the other fine arts, there's some renovation for the band.
Middle school.
That's the middle school.
Right, so,
That was renovated in 2015.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
not a whole lot we really need to do there.
I think we need to spend $1 million on that one.
Let's say
Okay.
if we're able to do the new fine arts center, the current band hall is good the way it is without having to do the renovation.
Yeah, that would be good.
So you move out and that's it.
well, that's what I'm wondering, would that save us money out of
Yeah.
taking that?
Yes.
Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you'd built in, I think it showed about $1 million for renovation
I
at
did.
the middle school.
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of estimating on exact square footage numbers
Sure.
for that, but I did estimate about $1 million. for that.
Okay.
So that can help.
You could not do anything besides paint it inside with your own people and scrub the carpets and move, and that could be middle school band hall and not spend $1 anymore.
Yeah.
We have a question.
Question from Zoom. With the combining of the libraries at the middle school, along with the moving of the middle school offices, what will be done with the space that's currently there?
Okay, good question. Part of what we're talking about would be, most of that would be turned into additional classroom space.
I guess for me, if I was gonna take an item off, and I'm looking at the one that is in board book, so I'm showing middle school library is, you're at $1,274,000. And, I mean, I kind of defer to Crystal and the middle school staff on, you're gonna cut $1,274,000. That would be an area, I think that works because we utilize that 5-6 area. It's kind of working as opposed to not having the space, having a new front for the middle school campus with.
So what you're saying is possibly not redo the libraries, but leave the intermediate middle school library the way they are?
Yeah. I mean, that would just be, I mean, I guess if the way that I'm looking at this line item, that's $1.2 million off. And, leaving, and if there was additional money left, then, because when you go into the bond process, as you know, you do end up with some changes happening.
Sure.
I do think on food service, if we reduce the kitchen, or sorry, opposite, if we kept the kitchen and reduce the dining space, we can probably save close to $2 million on that alone.
Okay.
And these are very rough numbers.
Absolutely.
Everyone, please,
Absolutely.
like, don't,
Which
don't
again,
hold
which
me
is,
to
which
these
again
numbers.
is what we're trying to look at, just in a way of, again, I'm not sure, I know I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I'm not sure that this room is ready to jump out at the $60 million tag. So I think that's what we're trying to figure out
That's gonna be hard to
is
say.
where can we go and what were we looking at here?
It's gonna be hard to say in public.
All right, so one of the things that was added late.
You don't like your negative attitude. No need to be negative in here.
You're
That
not
was-
in here, you got to jump on
So
board,
do your
man.
food service.
Well, I'm gonna be real and not say a bunch of snake oil though. you
So
know.
one of the things that was added late, really our third meeting, that's up here at $1.7 million, that we're currently not set up for, and we talked a little bit about it as well last meeting, of maybe even something a little smaller, is the new barn or new ag barn that she showed out by the early childhood building. You know, that's not something we currently do. Would it be great to have moving forward or on a wish list? It could be, but
I wanna ask something, cause we don't build necessarily metal buildings down at the shop, but I have built several. And for $1.7 million, I mean, I'm the ag teacher, so yeah, I would love to have it, but that to me is like a state-of-the-art, humongous, ginormous building. What, I was gonna ask you, what does the $1.7 million entail? Because I was thinking a whole lot less, is what I mean. I love it, don't get me wrong, I'd love to have it, but I was just thinking a lot less.
So part of why it's expensive is because we talked about having a classroom out there. And so that's like enclosed conditioned space as well as restrooms. So
You'd have to have restrooms, but they can wear jackets, I mean, I totally, I understand it, but I was just, the whole time we've been looking at that, I'm sitting there thinking, over $1 million for a barn, and the reason I'm saying it's been a while back, but we did one at my last school, and it was like $100,000, $150,000, it was big and nice. So I was just, that was why I was asking personally, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love it, but I'm like, yo, that's a lot.
so again, so I guess what I'm asking, as a committee, do you think that that's something that is a lower priority right now than other things of what we're looking at?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, $1 million, something we don't even have currently.
You might get somebody to donate a building, you know, later on down the road.
We need to talk to Mikkel.
if you do a masonry class, build your classroom. Kids could build a barn.
Okay, is anybody kept up with numbers? I don't even know where we are as of
Yeah,
right
we
now.
are.
20.5.
20.5?
Well, we haven't taken, I didn't take out the junior high, intermediate media center. Do you want me to take that out? You've got that.
Well, and if we take off 2
Say
million
cafeteria.
from the cafeteria expansion, you're at 18.5.
Yeah.
And we're on number four priority, which is, we're still trying to land on.
Yeah.
Okay, so really what we have left up there is enclosed breezeway, administration offices, and renovated spaces and service. So as Mary said, the service number, according to kind of what we're taking off, that number is gonna come down a little bit itself, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, and I'm plugging these in here, so it's kind of updating as we go. Right now I'm at, total, that bottom number, I'm at 43 right now.
Okay.
So on that, enclosed breezeway, can we talk about it?
But really what, kind of that conversation last time was with how she has the new Fine Arts building shown, that kind of closes this part here from the high school to the Cape building. But it still leaves it open all the way basically from the gym entrance on this side, give or take, all the way down to what would be considered where we're talking about new, our new middle school admin offices.
Okay.
Okay, so enclosing that in, making that a more secure area. You know, as we were talking about the admin renovation piece, one part of that admin would probably butt up to maybe the 5th and 6th grade building, so it closes off the sidewalk there. And then possibly, because we still have to have access, if we were to do so, we still have to have access to the gym, like for tonight with middle school playing basketball. So it would be some type of glass enclosure there between the admin and the Cape building.
So what do we think as far as travel goes? How often will kids be walking up and down that area, that breezeway?
Well, so now, if moving forward with what we're looking at, that number decreases a whole lot.
So it seems to me they're gonna be coming from here that way to the new buildings.
Correct.
They're not gonna be on this breezeway.
Correct.
It's gonna be middle school students. The middle school is the, go ahead.
That's all right. Middle school would be traveling back and forth to the gyms, for sure. And depending upon, because I had to step out there to the gym for a few minutes, I don't know what else might have been removed, so.
Are there kids traveling out there between every class?
Every
And that-
class, every class.
So,
They go to the cafeteria.
I would say, so architecturally, if you enclose that space, you're giving yourself a lot of freedom to have classrooms open up into that, because now you're not having to worry about, it's all secure, it's all conditioned. You could have windows, you could have doors, it could be open, you could have a lot of freedom with what you do with the plan. And change it to what would work.
Just about the breezeway, what is the reasoning for wanting to close it all the way down rather than just enclosing a section at the junior high to make one junior high and enclose a little section down here on this end to make one building down here? Why does it have to go all the way down? Does that make sense? If you only did,
So
if you only
here's-
enclosed part of it at both ends, you
Okay.
essentially have a separate junior high.
And so this, Mary, this is a question for you. I guess as we're talking, because I guess what he's asking, so let's play this out. Let's say that we moved ahead with with the middle school offices on the end. So that's gonna close that in. Let's say we move ahead with the renovation of the admin, and so that closes part of that. So now we just have basically a glass enclosure for some doors to get to the gym. And if the, Fine Arts Building basically encloses all of the rest of it. So it's really enclosed, we're just not redoing any of the roof or anything like that right there.
Right, yeah, the expense for that is really going to be waterproofing it and conditioning it. And that number, I put $200 a square foot, and it's $13,800.
So here's the question, I guess what I'm trying to say, is if we secure it just from entrance and exits, then it doesn't, I guess what I'm asking, could you be okay with not changing anything else to it? You know, the same roof, which means the concrete's gonna get wet when it rains inside. It's not gonna be air conditioned or heated, which is what she has understood us to say as we've talked about securing that space. You know, because the last time, as we even talked a little bit about it, we were talking about down on the middle school side, that they're really enclosing that as possible bathrooms, additional classrooms. I mean, so that's kind of been the conversation. So I guess the question is, if we enclose it at a much lesser cost, are we good with that at this point?
You're saying secure it, but not like enclose the whole
Correct.
thing. is
Just
what
add
you're trying to
doors
say.
and things, so
Right.
you still have to
Yeah.
like go through a secure entrance,
Right.
but
Yeah.
if you're going class to class, you're gonna
Because what's not on there,
need your jacket.
if you were actually trying to secure it and condition it, is it would have to wrap through the whole horseshoe of that open area. It'd have to go down in front of the auditorium to the middle school band hall, and it would have to go down, to
You mean
the
to enclose
cafeteria.
it?
Yeah, if you were gonna
Correct.
condition,
Yeah.
I'm
that
sorry,
part's
yes.
piece is missing, so
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
additional footage that we'd have to factor in to actually finish it off.
That's very good.
So just, I guess, I'm sorry, we have a question on the Zoom?
Yeah, it's a few parts here. If you move the middle admin office, would that allow the band hall to expand where it is? And what becomes of the old band hall if a new one is made? And will there be a high school band hall and a middle school band hall?
Okay, so to address that, so the first part is if we move those, could the current band hall be enlarged some there? I think that answer would be yes, it could, since those offices butt up to it. The second part of that question is in regard to, the high school, they're looking at the fine arts, are they able to see what's on the screen? In the Zoom? Okay, if you'll notice the green part on the screen, can they see that?
They're getting up there, yeah.
Okay, so, everybody's asking the question. The green part is the new fine arts building, which what we're talking about would be the brand-new high school, fine arts building, which would be band hall, be new space for theater arts and for art itself, okay? So the existing band hall would become the middle school band hall, and middle school band hall only. Okay? Did I answer all those questions on what they asked? Okay. Okay, yes, sir.
So the obstacle here is kind of selling this to the public. I'm just trying to figure out, as we're trimming pieces of this off, say we get down to 50 million even, does the tax increase drop proportionally as we trim? And so are we looking at selling $20 a month instead of 27 to the average household? Because that's a different conversation to me. Because if we need this stuff, and then the problem, the obstacle is selling it, then it's not any easier if it's me saying, hey, now it's only gonna be 20 and it was 27. That's not a big deal to the average household, I wouldn't imagine. So I think that's my overall question. Is this helpful, trimming $5 million off when it's kind of stuff we need? Or do we just not need it? I know some of them, like the breezeway and some of the things that are like, well, we don't need a $2 million metal building, we can build it for 200,000. But it's like when we're trimming things that we need, is it a better selling point to say now it's only $22 a month instead of 27? That doesn't make a ton of sense from a practical perspective to me. That's my thought.
That's a good point.
So I do have the numbers, as for 50 and 40 as well. Remember I said there's kind of the two types of structures we can do, one that wraps it around, to keep a level tax rate going forward, and another one where this specific bond has, equal payments each year. So going to 50 million would make, a 13-cent increase, which for the average home would be, $19.80 a month. And then under the same, concept for 40 million, it would be $18.28 a month. So, in that setup, it's not proportional reductions.
Can you explain what you mean by leveling those payments, like what versus?
So you have existing bond payments that kind of stair step down over the next couple of years. So we're talking about an increase. So if we're here right now and we're going like this, if we're wrapping it, there's a smaller increase now, and then we're kind of filling the stair steps in so it stays level overall. Does that make sense?
Through the longest current bond we have now, which is what, 34?
That's through 2034. The bonds I'm structuring right now are on a 25-year basis.
So this will be level through 34 and then fall off depending on how long we did this bond?
But it would be level for 25 years.
For 25 years? Okay.
And this bond runs through 25?
It's a 25-year bond, so it would run through 47 by the time we sell it.
So just so everybody understands, the flip side of that is you pay for it up front, and the last bond drops off at 34. 2034.
The last existing one.
Exists, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, what's it?
What was the question?
How much drops off? I think it's 5 million,
Yeah.
22, and it goes on to 22.
What would be the difference in how taxes paid that would be ending in 22, just to continue on?
She's asking how many cents are dropping off in 22.
I think how the last structured wasn't it, Christian, that there's not a,
Even though there's multiple bonds falling off, I think we structured out the, yeah, so, it actually holds, even though there's bonds falling off, the rate actually holds the same, or the debt service level holds the same through 29, and then it, drops to roughly 5 cents. 29.30, it drops to 5 cents for 5 months.
So when you say this wraps around, so we got a certain amount of bond money that we're paying, this is in addition to $27, this $200,000 balance, something like that, right? You said $27 goes above where we are today.
Okay.
And then you're just gonna keep that $27 above where we are today for the next 25 years.
So your total INS bill would be the same for the next 25 years.
And what's really happening in the background is a bond is dropping off, but we're not, so we're actually paying more for this particular bond when that first bond drops off. Is that how that works?
Yes, sir.
And the second one drops off, we're paying even more for it. As far as the taxpayer is concerned, $27 above where you are today for the next 25 years.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Yes, that question on
I
Zoom?
think this question's in reference to what he just said. So when the other bonds fall off, mature, why does our tax rate not go down with the maturing of those bonds and the payments?
Which he just addressed in regard to how the bonds are structured. Yeah.
Can I go back to what Ryan was saying?
Sure.
Because Ryan, I think you make a very valid point, and it's the same thing that I've asked. I have a concern, and this is where I really rely on the community output, is the sticker shock. Because we're taught, like, think of the in-depth conversation we're having, where we're getting down to the, like, well, it's only $7 a month more, and look what we're able to get the kids. But the community's gonna see $60 million, like, there's gonna be the, oh snap, sticker shock. And so, I want opinions and y'all's feedback of, like, yeah, we think we can sell that, or does it look better we trim off and ask for less and compromise more? Does that make sense?
It does, and my point is, 40 million still gives me sticker shock. I mean, so it's not, we can trim half of this stuff and it's still like, holy cow, that's $30 million.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that part, you know, it's, to me, it's the, like, what does this mean to me monthly and personally? That's what you have to sell, and so is it worth trimming some of the things that we may or may not need? That I don't know, just a question.
So to give you an update on my numbers, based on taking out the barn, taking out the band hall, what else did I change?
Yeah, the renovation of the band hall.
Well, yeah, the renovation of the band hall, took that out.
The media center, that's part of it, they had to apply ours.
I did not take out the media center.
No, that stays, that stays.
Well, the middle school,
No, I'm sorry, the
with the
middle school piece.
renovation. But, so, let's just say for argument's sake, say that stays and you can do that too. So, my new number is, total all in is about 34.1 is what I'm down to.
So what renovations or work would still be done at the middle school? Or
Cause
is it all
I'm
been
sorry,
done?
I took the breezeway out too.
Okay.
Completely out?
Except for the ends being.
For the breezeway, what she said?
I mean, I just zeroed it, so,
Yeah.
yeah, for now.
I'll say this, because the enclosure part of what will be left, if we do everything else, is minimal.
Correct. That's still right.
Are we gonna leave the entrance the same? Is this number leaving?
Well,
the
so
entrance
that
and
becomes
outdoor
part of the
same?
renovated space,
The media center area.
yeah, there's some of that, well,
high
even,
school.
some of the renovation of the 6.5, I think, down on the bottom, under the new construction piece, that renovation piece,
Mhm.
as well as some of the renovated spaces of some offices and classrooms up there as well, I would take it. And that 6.5, sorry, that's the same number. That renovated 6.5 is some of that renovation here at the front, of updating the front,
Yes.
with the high school.
Yeah. And I broke it out just because, again, renovation dollars are less than new construction dollars, so I needed to separate those.
Okay.
And we talked about a skin or something to make, if we're putting a new building over here, that makes this whole thing from this, the end of this high school here, all the way to the end of the middle school. Does that include any of that? Do you have any of that in there?
No. So I have the new pieces, and we would design it in a way that it ties it together, but no, I don't have like reskinning.
So,
the
when we're talking about new skinning, is that the possibility of, painting the brick the color of to make it back? I mean, what are we,
I
we're
feel
talking skinny,
like-
what are we thinking?
I think the existing building is, we can work with that, you know, it's not a crazy color or anything, that it's a neutral buff tan brick that, you know, and the windows are regular, I wouldn't mess with it too much, as long as it functions.
Okay.
And the new pieces, like, the media center is gonna have a lot more glass, and the, you know, obviously the offices and everything, it's gonna feel fresh and new, and it's gonna look different for sure. But
Can we go back to what she asked about what we can sell? What you're putting on the front and everything don't mean I can sell it on my end of the county.
Sure.
You know, I cannot sell, I get asked questions, wasn't that a new band hall? Isn't that band hall new? When was that band hall built? If we're up here to try to sell this bond, I mean, we gotta get something we can tell people. I don't know when the band hall was built, but everybody's telling me it was just on the lake bond. The administration building, they're not worried about the administration building at all. I tell you point blank, you know, what I can tell people.
Sure.
And I think that's what our job is supposed to be, is try to help sell this, is it not?
Hey,
Sure.
I'm not speaking because Band Man's sitting next to you, but I can tell you, I was a middle school principal, and when we renovated that band hall, we had 35 high school band members, and it was renovated to.
Like I say, I'm just saying what people are asking me.
Sure.
Right, I'm giving you your ammo. It was renovated when we had 35 high school band members
Okay.
to hold up to 75, which was almost double what they currently were. And now, how many years later?
they're double.
6 years later, how many do you have now?
It was 80 in the high school.
So we've already exceeded what we built it to cover, so that's your answer for the.
That
for the
answers
band.
the question.
And our numbers are gonna go a lot more up.
Like I say, the administration building, they don't care about it.
Hey, you know what, when those numbers came today, I told the ladies, we're gonna get that extra toilet at the admin, there's gonna be a porta potty sitting outside. So I kinda want the breezeway now covered in air conditioning, and I'm gonna have to go out.
I wanna tell you something that I haven't heard you talk about this yet.
Boys is the porta potty.
Boys is the porta potty.
Our breezeway is not just for the convenience of our kids going back and forth from building to building.
Thank you.
That breezeway is a security barrier for outside forces. About a month ago, we had a guy from New Jersey out on our back playground having a picnic with his dog. And where he came from, nobody knows. I ran him through the FBI, through the DPS. I ran him through everything we could, and he did not have a criminal history, or I couldn't find anything on him. But that's the kind of threat that we have out there we need to think about. How did he end up? He had a Colorado driver's license. He lives in New Jersey. He said he had been to Austin and was on his way home. And he ended up on our back playground, right back here behind the middle school, the junior high, having a picnic with his dog. Those are some of the things that we need to kind of consider, not just the convenience of our kids, but we need to make it a little bit more secure for outside forces coming into the school. If you don't think we have those here in Franklin County, you're wrong. So, just something to consider about that part. It doesn't have to be totally enclosed, but it does need to have some kind of barrier to keep people out. And if it hadn't been for our middle school teachers looking out the window and saying, hey, there's a guy throwing a frisbee to his dog having a picnic, you know, who knows what he would have done or how long he would have been there. So those are other things that we consider, not just our convenience for that, but we need to think about where our kids are going to be safe from outside influences, not just a more convenience for us in here.
Sure.
Corey?
Just kind of touch on what you were saying, you know, working with the architect and construction manager, all that is put together, that information will be given to you. I mean, there'll be multiple community meetings where that information is put out for those guys. You gotta answer those questions, you gotta be able to make sure that they understand.
I get asked those questions more
Well,
than I can.
and I wanted to piggyback on that, because never would we just expect one person to, that's where your town hall meetings come in, that's why you have WRA, that's why you have a bond page, that you direct people to go see that. That's why you have the question that comes up every bond process I've been part of, how much is it gonna cost me? So they have slides at every town hall meeting on, here's your home value, here's what this is gonna cost you. And so you structure those town hall meetings understanding that they're not in school business, so they don't know. What they care about is, how is this gonna affect my taxes? and so you're able to answer those
I
questions.
got elected to be here by a retard on the school board. Talking about me because he said, your taxes are going up and I get mad. And those are the people that I have asking me these questions.
Sure.
Like I say, I'm trying to go back now, but he just tell me you're not paying any attention. And I'm not gonna call him names.
All the way down to.
Somebody's not getting invited back. Take him off the email.
Yeah, and then those are, that is the helpful part, because you can get into that, like, I'm a Y girl, I'm gonna ask a million questions on that. Someone else is gonna go, how much is it gonna cost me? Someone else is gonna ask a gajillion questions on the fine arts building.
But see, you're gonna look at that computer and I'm not gonna turn one on. And I'm dealing with those people, so that's what I say, I have to have something.
Even part of that, you'll get printed material, we'll have printed
Yes.
material that you're gonna have that will have the list of things
And that's what they
and the
need to
why,
see.
yes.
Can I add to that? I think though it's great, and I would love hearing what everyone's saying, the questions you're getting asked, so we can make sure it's in that. So I just wanna add that, always come to the board members, come to us, so we know what to put in there, what you're hearing, and that's great.
What you're talking about refacing it, redoing this, if you can't sell it, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
And that's what you gotta have an answer to. And that's what I think we need, some what we're gonna sell.
Okay, where are we?
We're still on number 4.
Still on number 4.
What do you mean? Oh.
The fourth priority.
Fourth priority. So,
So we've kind of taken out the enclosed breezeway, we've taken out the VOAG barn. Renovating spaces will be a little bit smaller with some of that. The service is gonna be a little bit smaller because the spaces are smaller.
Yep.
We've taken some off food service of the high school cafeteria because we're not talking as big a space.
Yep.
I know you're saying that there's not public out there or not any support, but, so I'm gonna ask others as well. I mean, from administrative office, so let's break it into 2 pieces. Again, part of what we talked about, and let's start with the middle school. You know, we have 2 different office complexes, basically for middle school. The conversation has been trying to get a new space, making that a new entrance to the middle school. So is that a priority for the committee?
Yes.
You broke that, so that is 1.2, looking at that.
I think the traffic flow conversation probably comes into that too, about moving the traffic around there and making it a little bit safer for the kids getting in and out, separating them from the high school. So I think that's another reason probably for the middle school.
Ma'am?
Max, does that help the security to do that? What they're talking about by moving those offices to the front on the other, you might not know what we're talking about over to the other side.
North side.
So well, one thing it does, and again, it closes off, that automatically closes off that end of the breezeway. Okay? So that piece there is taken care of. Again, it gives, as a middle school parent, say somebody moves in, or let's just say a 5th grade parent, first time they come up, they don't know now, do they stop at the first office complex, which is now where Ms. Woodard is, or do they need to go back to the back, you know, because they're 7th and 8th grade, or where do they go? By doing something like this, it brings that piece together, as well as I think really ties the middle school campus together as well, personally.
Well, it does secure it, because if you do your admin, if you redo your district admin and push it all the way against the 5th and 6th grade building, now all your visitors are coming to an exterior door.
Correct.
You would still have people trying to come through to get back to the 8th grade. If you had an 8th grade office, you may have people and kids having to travel there, and they're not gonna have a way to get there from the front. If you are, it's gonna be harder.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna be wandering around. So I think those 2 go hand in hand.
Okay. So I think, again, I think that's a piece of securing the total campus up here, personally.
we haven't talked about Prop B yet. Or is that,
Sorry, say that again?
I was gonna say, we haven't talked about Prop B at all.
Not yet, we're about to.
Okay.
Question?
Everyone's like,
No,
If
just because
the
we're spinning
middle
flop
school
field.
offices are combined, admin building be extended into that office space, enclosing that open area from the admin building to the intermediate building.
Yeah,
Yes, that's what we were talking about, yes, yes. Thanks
Yeah,
for that,
Mary, we're
yes.
at our max, so Prop B's out.
Okay, All right, so where are we on Prop A right now with what you said we've done?
I currently am at 34.1.
Okay.
And that's still with.
This
How
is,
much does that change that on the taxpayer end? Because that's what people want
So
to know.
say,
What's the
say
difference?
35, do
Yeah,
35.
just 35, just on that piece.
this is a 25-year decision, right?
Right.
At the end of 25, this is paid off, we'd sure hate to go right back into another bond. So, if we start reducing things, and the next thing you know, we're out of space in 10 years, now what are we gonna do? I mean, to me, we're doing something that needs to be done from a security standpoint and for growth. So I don't know about the,
That's kind of what's been done in that the last bond, now we're redoing some of the things that they did in the last bond. And we're already ready to redo them because we.
because it wasn't, yeah.
Well, you know, and
You got to, yeah.
understand, part of the piece in regard to, you know, trying for that growth, you know, and some of these things of what we're talking about will allow for some of that. So, such as the administration office addition there allows the special ed offices to move out, so we have additional space in the CTE building. The fine arts piece, by doing that, moves theater out of CTE, which makes additional space there, as well as moves art out of here, gives additional space there. If we do some office work here as a part of that renovation for the high school, that gives a couple additional spaces there. At the middle school, if we redo their offices or do the offices there, we'll create some additional space there. So by doing it, we're allowing for some growth. The part of what we don't have for us right now is historical growth of what we're seeing. Now, 25 years, trying to look that far ahead, and as things are coming east from the Dallas area, you have to believe that some of that growth is going to take place. But now, if that growth takes place as well, then in essence, what you're talking about is you're talking about additional students, you're talking about additional homes, you're talking about additional tax base, a lot of things coming into play that therefore create a different financial picture that the current bond pays off sooner or allows other opportunity. Yeah, so we're kind of looking down the road for that.
I just don't know if we want to be cutting a lot of things, it's gonna just.
Well, I was gonna say, really from what I've seen, kind of what we've cut in regard to enclosing in the breezeway, I don't know that that's, if we can secure that, I think that meets the need of what we're talking about, not heating and cooling. Okay? The
25 years, I'm not even.
the animal ag barn, again, is a dream.
Put a $1.7 million ag barn.
Yeah, so, you know, so some of these kind of we're talking about.
Volunteer to make that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, that could also be something that the board decides to use fund balance for at a later date. Once this is done, now you go, okay, now let's look at that, let's, you know, take a look at fund balance and do a smaller structure.
Yeah.
So it's not forever gone, it's just you do have available funds to consider doing that through district money.
Okay, so is there anything else on Prop A that we've not talked about?
The awnings out front, the buses, coverage. Is that on there?
I don't think that was on there.
I don't have it broken out.
Is it, I couldn't see, is it drawn in?
It's drawn
Oh,
in,
okay.
Yeah,
but
that's
I,
the flat,
I couldn't see
the
it.
purple around it, or one.
but I don't have that number broken out specifically, but
It's a part of some numbers that's in there?
Where is it
Is
at?
it part of the renovated spaces or?
You said it's $18.40.
Somewhere in that 2018,
I mean, these are round. Yeah, it's,
But he said all of it, the 60
it's right
was
here.
27,
Okay, yeah.
right? I just,
Okay, so I guess my question for the committee is gonna be then, are we kinda sitting there on the Prop A part of where we're comfortable? Again, we've not, I know we've chiseled some away, but I don't think that we have chiseled away main pieces of what we've talked about.
We're right around 35 right now
Okay,
per project.
okay,
So, two things. 35 would be about 11 cents if we do the wrap structure.
okay,
Okay.
Versus 29?
no,
Sorry, 11 cents for,
Haven't had to do the
Yes.
training for that.
yes.
about 17 cents a month, or
So
$17
it's
a
45,
month.
it ain't gonna be 11 cents, it'll be
Okay.
about.
Versus, so $10 a month difference.
One thing on the propositions, I've been talking to the attorney, the football field would have to be on its own.
without baseball, softball.
Correct. Now, baseball, softball could go into Prop A, but if you don't want to include those athletics, you would have to, and you do want to do the football stadium, you have to have 3 propositions. So it'd be the 35 that we just discussed, the football stadium, and the non-football stadium athletics. If you wanted to separate the athletics out from the education. Does that make sense?
That becomes hard right there. Okay, are we, then let's switch over to Proposition B.
And C.
And now C.
And C.
Correct.
I think we would lose the others. If we did C, we would lose the baseball and softball.
By law. By law. Who wrote that? Do you know somebody who might can need, if you don't get that taken care of? Hey folks, real quick, Christian.
Okay, so the idea behind it is, recently, some legislation was passed that if there is an athletic facility or a fine arts facility, with seating capacity of over 1,000, that has to get broken off to be its own proposition. However, if it's less than 1,000, it does not need to be broken off and can't get added to the over 1,000 seating capacity proposition. Does that make sense? So that's why you couldn't do a 200 seating capacity baseball with a 3,000 seating capacity football. Does that make sense? So that's the background behind that.
So it could be a part of A.
Yeah,
It could be a part of A, yes, sir.
so that means baseball, softball moves into, I wouldn't put it on its own.
Yeah, I would
Put it in
name
A.
Just broke it off.
But you can't put it right.
Just for something to
Broke it
add
off,
in there,
but you broke
say
it off.
we're making parking lot or something, reroute traffic, and then we include baseball.
Trying to get people
She
on
said,
board.
she said, we're gonna try to put 4 million back. And you're only gonna put 5 million back.
So you run the
Okay.
risk of that.
We don't necessarily have this paper.
To go with football.
All right, so let me give you this information. We talked about last week of seating capacity currently on our current home side. I went out there again a while before this meeting to make sure. We have 340 reserve seats in the reserve section there in the middle. And the way I kind of sit down and kind of marked it off, I think each side holds about another 550 for a total of 1,100. So roughly right at 1440. Does that sound right, Bobby? Pretty close? Now that's in the metal, that's in the existing metal stands, home side 1440. Okay? That does not include the green temporary ones that the county has loaned us over the last 3 years that holds another 500 to 600. Okay? So, for point of reference, not that I necessarily need to bring point of reference with this school, but I did reach out to Winsboro, who has recently built a new one just for your reference. He said their home side seats 2,000, the visitor side seats 1,000. But you gotta remember, if we do this and we flip, we're not doing anything to the visitor. The visitor stands would hold 1,440 people. Okay, that would be what they would hold, because that's what it holds. So now on the home side, we talked previously, well, let's do 3,000. Well, now that's doubling what we currently have. Do we need to double what we currently have?
What's the price difference
I don't know that.
Do you have any idea?
Today or
We're actually going
Tomorrow.
Yeah, the 900,000 is just for the stands, and that's from Sturdy Steel.
That's for 3,000? So you're,
But,
This
and
is rough-
if you want fancy reserved, seats, that adds $125 a seat.
per seat.
Per
Yeah, so that 900,000 is just benches, basically.
It's more
Lower
about what
capacity,
we
I
do,
need
though,
to-
right? It's about being able to host events, and that's the bigger picture of it. I assume when you get that many, is to be able to get the revenue off of hosting playoff events and stuff.
And the growth, like you were saying, if we don't do it, I mean, where's Mount Vernon gonna be in 10, 20 years, you know? I mean,
I would say sturdy steel is pretty easy to add on to too.
Mhm.
I mean, if you went 2,000, you could add 1,000 seats to each side, you could set it up that way, you design, make it simple too.
Yep.
Okay?
So you said the stands right now, 1,400 plus 600 on the temporaries, so that's 2,000 right there, so we're not doubling it, we're only adding 1,000.
But if you want the nice seats, you're still gonna be close to that. You're not like,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be,
When you, something to consider when you're looking at, are you counting 12-inch seats in that, or are you counting 13, I mean, it's a
Whatever
big-
McKinney ISD had is what we want.
That was just 65 million, that's.
I mean, I know Dr. McCullough doesn't mind my knees and his back at every home game, but I'm just saying. A little extra inches. Mr. Taylor's got some legs.
I'd say probably, yeah.
You
I don't
probably
know
appreciate
that-
a little stretch out.
You go to Tyler Rose Stadium, you don't have to have
A little more room than that was perfect.
I just got,
walk-in room in
I
front
would
of it.
I would really look into that pretty hard as far as the width, when you're saying there's 1,400 now, is that 11-inch, 12-inch, 13-inch?
It's tiny, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's hip to hip when you're in there.
Yeah.
If you sit on the seats that they have numbered, you're about hip to hip.
a typical seat is 18 inches.
I don't know
So
if we're
if
typical.
you wanted to go wider,
What is the width of your purple chair, Brian?
79 inches.
everyone gets a towel.
Landon chimed in and said we could ask people to buy their own reserve seats, and then said we'll take 8, so you can factor that in. That is an
I
idea.
would buy mine. How many do I need to buy?
Okay, hang on, hang on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now we're talking about putting the baseball and softball fields back in the proposition A with the other stuff like we originally said in the first place.
They have to go back to A, or they have to be in C by themselves? Correct.
Okay, so what exactly would that 2.5 million for baseball and 2.5 for softball?
So you're now going from 35 proposition A to 40.
I know how much
Yeah.
it would add to it, but what is that paying for the softball and baseball fields?
It,
After
It's
other
everything.
events, all the stuff.
it's not including restrooms. It is, synthetic turf, fences, metal panel outfield, light, shade structures, dugouts with storage.
No seating. I think
If you
you
wanted.
put the sport deal on your needs, you increase your odds of getting it voted down. When you do this, what are the odds? You take a baseball and softball field that's not near the priority it should be, but it's not near the priority of the football field. You stick that on there, on the stuff that we need. It sounds like a no-no to me. It sounds like a good way to just say, you know what, y'all wasted your time
It's
on
more of a
this deal.
gamble.
It's a division. You're dividing your voters.
People are gonna go vote against that. Like, they're more likely to vote against it than they are come out and vote for this needs deal, I think.
See, and I'm on the other end, where I think if you don't do it that way, you're us not getting it done at all, and then you're holding the favor to the football. So the best way to get it all done is combining them. I mean, it's a gamble either way, but I think if you split it into 2, you're gonna, or 3, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and it's not gonna happen at all.
3 is not.
Yeah, 3's not gonna happen. I don't think, in my opinion.
Too many decisions is what they think is priority.
Yeah, so I
If I would
think
pass baseball would fail.
If you want baseball to make it at all, you need to put it on 8.
But based on what Christian said in the stands, you have to separate. You're either going 3 props or you're putting it on A.
So what you're ultimately deciding is if you're going to remove baseball, softball, that's the question.
So let me ask a question, Christian, if, so no daggers or anything, so here's the question that I have, is, I guess for the committee really and truly as well. If $10 million is too much total for that, we already know baseball, softball has to come out of the football part, off the football field part. from a community standpoint, do you think the community would be okay if we didn't build brand new baseball, softball, but we turfed what we currently have?
What's the question for me?
Could that turf, does that have to go into A, or could it deal with B still? Anything dealing with that has to be,
I asked them every question, just not knowing what y'all's intentions were, to just kind of dig. And they said they haven't cleared it with the Attorney General yet, but they don't see a way that
okay.
not be, that it can be a different way besides either included in A or as a third.
What if you only turfed, what if you didn't touch your stands, if you only did turf? Could you put that all on one?
No, sir.
Because you seat more than 1,000 over here?
The facility seats more than 1,000, so as soon as you touch it with bond money.
Say it again?
Could you throw the football proposition out?
Could.
Good. Softball, baseball, because the gym and everything, all that athletic part right there's been done lately. So you throw the football in and out.
But how much are we on water, fertilizer,
Yeah.
maintenance?
So to answer your question, could we? Yes, we could. Do I think that should still go before the voters to let them, if they wanna throw it out? I personally do. And again, I'm just me, I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, that would be kind of the committee and the board to kind
I
of
think the softball and the baseball that need to be redone can get the votes to carry if the football's on the ballot.
Good question. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we talked about how the redoing the baseball and softball will also be a way for us to get more revenue for the district, because we will be able to sell tickets.
If, that would be if we built brand new. How we're currently set up, without spending some additional money for fencing and things like
We
that,
can't
new
make any
parking,
money on it.
yeah, we're not able to
Right,
do so.
so by doing it, we're actually gonna create a moneymaker for the district.
I'm just wondering if there's
But
something we could.
possible, but don't know if it's gonna be 2.5 million.
It would be similar to the.
Is it enough?
Yeah.
So it would still be that much.
And even that, the guy said it's 850,000 to 1.3 on the seventh grade.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, hang on, folks, hang on just real
I would
quick.
say at least $1 million.
This is my opinion, and I am not a football big supporter, never went to a football game for last year, okay? I am a band supporter, but if you do not redo your football field and stay up with the times, what everybody else is doing, the school district will suffer. That's because you go to all these other facilities, and these ones that we went to, a lot of this, that Mr. Parker took us to on the band this year, ours is junk compared to everybody else.
Amen.
So we've got to redo.
Well, and part of what we've got to remember, redoing the football field is not just for football only.
Right.
I mean, it is, again,
The revenue it brings in, just the one that we were at Lindell, I watched as the bands were leaving, because we were at the big area competition. Whataburger had a line a mile long. Just people lined up to eat, okay? It brings revenue into your town, and we're gonna need some more restaurants. I mean, that's basically what it amounts to. So, but if you don't keep up with that, and if you don't keep your school district where it needs to be, pretty soon you're gonna look around, your school district's not gonna be good at all. That's what I think.
I think the problem is you have, if we talk about people moving in the area, and speaking for someone who recently moved in the area, parents come and tour. So parents are gonna go to Winsboro, they're gonna come here, they're looking at Sulphur Springs and they're looking at Mount Pleasant. And the first thing they see is our facilities.
I moved here for this school district. That is the only reason I'm here.
So
I had a choice because of my job and what town I was gonna live in, I picked this one because of the school.
So, I mean, in today's, you're pretty much marketing yourself, I guess is what I'm saying. And if turf football is the market, and we're not staying in the market,
Correct.
we're knocking ourselves out, and parents, if they have no loyalty here and they don't have family here, they hook it right.
Right, and then there goes your school, there's teachers, everything else that goes along with that. So I think it's important that we keep up with the times. Now, do we need to build the biggest and best, just like McKinney? Of course not. But we need to have more stands in Winsboro, that's for sure. That's, but I think we have to keep up with the times for this whole town will regret it. Because with all this comes the revenue into the town too. And we can host our band competitions, we can have people coming in, you can have your hotels full. I mean, there's a lot that goes with this, and it's not just all about playing football, it really isn't. So I think we need to consider that as a school district. And when you're talking about $10 million, it seems like a lot, but it's really not.
No.
Not in the long term scheme of life, it's really not a lot.
Goes back to kind of what you're saying as well. Hey, real quick, Mr. Partridge?
To add on to that, I can't tell you how many times when I walk in the Department of Close or Mr. Lover's office say, hey, we may not get to perform our halftime show this Friday because of the rain. You know, not just, on top of that, every place we go to for playoffs for football is on turf. So you're preparing people to have more success, and not just athletics, but also band, because all our competitions are on turf. We've had kids twist their ankles on that grass because it gets so muddy, and that their foot gets stuck because of how the shoes work and everything. So there's a lot of pros, and of course I don't know what the maintenance will be with turf or anything like that, but our maintenance department is definitely the best in Texas. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Mr. Thompson is killing it. I can't even tell you what they do, how much work they do. It's incredible. They're out there paving the field twice a week when it rains a lot. You know what I mean? Just to make sure it was working, cutting the grass. I mean, they work so hard on that field to make it as good as it can be, and it's just getting to the point where it's almost just the grass itself. I mean, everyone's kind of going towards turf, like Ms. Barrett said. So, even though we have such a great maintenance group and transportation group, that's the future for sure.
What is the longevity of the turf? When do you have to redo it?
10 to 12 years.
Once you do it, I mean, I would figure you're gonna have to, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to keep doing it too.
That's $1 million and not 10 though, when that happens.
Yeah.
That's the trouble, I need to know that, is that what it is? I mean, it's.
Well, it's, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's 1.3.
It's just resurfacing the top.
Does it basically cost that to redo it again in 10 years?
No,
No,
because you're not having to do the foundation.
So you
You're gonna have to do the drainage.
that's what I'm looking at,
You're putting a new turf on top.
We're currently doing, and I understand you're wanting to, you're doing turf on softball and baseball, I understand that. Chisholm uses theirs a ton, because it's turf. But my kid goes to Prairie Land, they just redid theirs in grass, softball and baseball about a year ago. You can talk to Jeff, see what his maintenance is, their fields are phenomenal. And we're currently, in another district we're in, we're currently doing baseball and softball backstops in grass for 1.2.
Together.
That's new drainage, new sprinkler, new hybrid Bermuda, new backstop, and it's under construction now, so. I understand, I see how much Chisholm uses theirs, the community uses, I mean, there was kids out there last week playing softball.
Yeah, and I think that's the deal, and I think that's what we have to look at, as we talked about last time, for our baseball team. I think 3 of the first 5 baseball games they played, we rented Grand Saline's field for them to play because it was too wet. And again, the way it's looking this year, we might have to do anything because it might be so dry, we might have to turn the sprinklers on next month. But, I mean, normally for us during this time, end of January is when baseball and softball starts. They play through the month of February into early March, which a lot of times for us is the wettest time of the year. So, what else?
This is more of a
Okay.
comment. More of a comment. We discussed earlier not discriminating between the fine arts. The same thing is occurring if you choose to better one athletic facility versus another. We're the only school in our district that's not making any revenue on baseball or softball.
If he builds it, they will come.
Or football, but
I think
considering
if you're
anything.
gonna do one, you do it all.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's sort of what I'm hearing from the committee that, well, again, and I understand what they're saying, Proposition B is not gonna look like Proposition B is up here because baseball, softball has to come out. So in essence, which the board will have to kind of talk through that and figure out when they start looking at how they want the bond proposal to look, whether they add baseball, softball to Proposition A, or we have a Proposition A, which is currently, as you see it, minus a couple of things we talked about. Proposition B being football stadium upgrades, and then Proposition C being baseball and softball. And so again, I understand what you said a while ago, so then it becomes the voters will decide, you know, are they okay with it or are they not? You know, and that becomes the bond committee and, you know, their communication and going out and sharing with folks, basically these conversations of why and what the opportunities are, and answering questions. Okay, what else?
Is this covering any of the, outfits on auditorium or?
No. Maybe stuff we probably start to about it, do something like that.
Yeah. Like if you wanted a new scoreboard, there's a huge range for that. So, that's a whole different conversation.
Donations.
Replay like we had.
Okay, all right, so here's kind of where, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, where I'm fixing to go with this. So the board has to make the decision of, if they are going to call for a bond, will either have to take place, the latest it can take place is the February 14th board meeting, because it has to be called before February 18th. Correct, okay, that's right. So the question is, I guess, does the facility committee feel that we need to meet again in January? You think they do? You want them to meet again, to look back at what we've got?
I think just to finalize it and everyone bless it.
Okay.
And as a group, come up with the official recommendation. Because tonight has been a lot of like going back and forth and talking about it, but basically if we're so what I've heard, I've already kind of talked about what, you know, removing the breezeway and cutting down food dining area and that kind of stuff. And moving ball fields into A, right? That's what I heard. Okay, so we're hovering around 40.5 for A. And for B, which is just football facilities, is around 5.
You said that baseball, softball did not include seating? Or didn't include restrooms?
I have restrooms.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought we did concession, restaurant, yeah, all that.
It's a
was in
separate
there.
number
Yeah.
though. It's
Oh.
not in that 2.5, it's its own line item. But,
For baseball, softball?
correct.
What
So-
about seating for those?
Yeah, if we wanted some seating, you could just tell me how many seats and I can adjust that number too.
Okay.
Like how many, like just a couple, or is it full, like, mini grandstand kind of thing? Like, I just don't know the scale
let-
you all are thinking of.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so again, if we're gonna do this, and I know this has been a long night, I appreciate you being willing to be a part of this. But what I'd like for us to do, if you're willing, as a committee, I'd like to ask you to be back at the January board meeting. So again, we can have this conversation as a whole if you're willing to do so. The January board meeting is, January the 10th. That's the second Monday. I believe that's right. I'm going off memory. Does that sound right?
should be the second Monday.
So, okay.
Is that doable, Mary, for y'all?
What, I'm sorry, what day?
That's right, January 10th is the second Monday. That's doable? Is the committee okay with coming back and meeting with us one more time at that time?
Well, it can be a lot shorter, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, it should be, because we've kind of hashed out a lot of it, and I'm gonna clean all this up and come up with what the And then, one other thing is, you all will need to designate a spokesperson to present to the board on that February meeting. So, whoever wants to be that person. But it should be from your community.
Somebody wanna raise your hand and volunteer to be that spokesperson come January the 10th?
He's got some lead hands, I know.
Ryan Morris.
We don't even know that
I
I'm-
nominate Ryan.
You said a January meeting,
Well, it would be for the final, like.
So
when
it'd really be the
when-
February meeting, I guess.
It would be
wouldn't
the February meeting when the board votes to make it official, you're going out for a bond. And that's when you all have to play neutral.
Yeah.
As soon as
So-
you call that.
Accept the recommendation.
As a-
Accept the recommendation from the community, and then it's all official.
So that information will be, I mean, there'll be a script basically that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, I mean, there's gonna be the information that that person will present from. It won't
From the
be,
January
Yeah,
10th meeting.
yeah, it won't be
So-
cold turkey.
It'll get
And-
solidified and then presented in.
Yeah, and at the January 10th, once everyone blesses it, then it should go to your lawyers and everything and make sure all the language is correct and all that kind of stuff too. So you need that time period in there.
Because you'll have to put all the voting information and everything in all of the paperwork that's called.
Okay,
That'll be required, but your council will.
okay, okay, all right. So we'll work on a spokesperson. We will work on a spokesperson. Yes, sir.
This is why you're there.
Mary, can it be, does it have to be community or could it be a staff person? It just needs to be somebody off the committee, right? It just can't be one of us 8.
Right.
I can do it, I don't mind it.
Not a board member.
Okay.
Yes, Marguerite. Yes.
Just one,
Yes.
will it just be one person or could it be?
We good?
Mary?
It can be more than one.
Only
It's
one
just,
person can talk at a time.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Mary? Committee, anything else?
So it's at 5:15, same time.
The 10th, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And then the February meeting, just for scheduling that as well, is Valentine's Day, February 14th.
Aw.
We'll be there.
Dr. Marshall will be in a special Cupid
No,
outfit
we
for
got
all
our
to attend.
We're-
We'll be purchasing that later.
That's right. Where are we?
Their ski trip.
What?
Sorry, booked.
Okay. That's right, she will. Okay, Miss Mary, anything else?
I'm just putting everything in my calendar.
We good? Zoom, we're good on Zoom? Okay, Mr. President.
All right. At this time, the board will convene in a closed session to discuss personnel matters as posted on the agenda and allowed by Texas Government Code, Chapter 551074. It's 8:24 in the PM.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
This almost reminds me of the first meeting we had.
Convenes back into open session. Business we have right now is a new hire.
We have one recommendation for a new hire, Jason Keeney.